Chapter 39:12. There are many bays on the hidden Immortal continent near the North Sea. There are so many that you can't even count them. These bays are big and small. Among them, Yuling Bay can definitely be ranked in the top 3. Yuling Bay covers an area of several hundred kilometers. The huge mountain range is like a foot that extends into the North Sea. Between these mountains, there are thousands of huge ships anchored in the calm bays, ready to set off. Similarly, outside the bay, there are many ships slowly sailing back every day. The reason why Yuling Bay is big, aside from the several bays deep in the North Sea, is because of the towns between the mountain ranges on the continent. Yuling Bay originally didn't have any towns, but with many people coming here, it has a town. This town doesn't have a name and is different from other towns on the hidden Immortal continent. No Confucian cultivator established a country here, and no government was stationed here. This is because in addition to humans who are looking for their dreams, there are also many demons, dragons, and other species that come to Yuling Bay. Many times, there are even more fish demons than humans in Yuling Bay. At this time, it is already dusk, the time when birds return to their nests. Around Yuling Bay, there are many cultivators controlling clouds or flying ships to quickly descend. Because night hasn't fallen yet, the entire Yuling Bay is already brightly lit. It is like a gorgeous homecoming of people waiting to return home. Caw! A cry that was not much louder than a bird's cry rang out in the dusk sky. A ferocious bird that was over 100 feet in size was flapping its wings and descending towards Yuling Bay. Suddenly, a flying serpent that was several tens of feet in size swooped down from the sky like a bolt of lightning. The wings below the flying serpent's abdomen were flapping, and wisps of black flame could be faintly seen. The flying serpent descended and bit the neck of the ferocious bird. The bird was shocked and hastily dodged. At the same time, it opened its mouth and a flying sword-like brilliance pierced out. The flying snake didn't dodge and bit down on the raptor's neck. Clang! With a light sound, the beam of light from the raptor hit the flying snake. Sparks flew out from the scales of the flying snake. The ferocious bird felt the pain and flapped its wings rapidly. The strong wind caused its entire body to tumble in the air. Furthermore, it took advantage of the moment when the flying snake's body rolled over to grab the flying snake's tail with its sharp claws. Hiss hiss! A black mist came out of the flying serpent's mouth. Bang bang! The flying serpent and the bird's body violently collided. However, in just a moment, the bird's body crazily trembled. Then, its wings became stiff and its entire body fell straight down from the sky. Looking at the flying snake again, its entire body was slowly shrinking. The wings under its abdomen slashed across the ferocious bird's abdomen, and the snow-white feathers were immediately stained with blood. Within the blood, a faint brilliance shot out. The flying snake's eyes were filled with greed. The snake's head let go of the bird's neck and plunged into the blood. After a moment, the snake's head retracted. In the snake's mouth was a demon core the size of a thumb. The demonic core was azure in color, and there were some spots on the inside. It didn't look very pure, but the flying snake immediately let go of the beast's body and swallowed the demonic core in one gulp. Huff huff! The bird's body, which was dozens of feet long, fell down in the wind. The flying snake's body flashed with black mist and stopped in the air. After a moment, a pang sound came from the ground in the distance. The black flame on the flying snake's body was uncontrollably ignited. Boom! Under the black flame, the flying snake's body gradually shrunk. Hiss hiss! The flying snake's tongue flicked in and out in the air as if it was in extreme pain. However, in the time it took to smoke half a cigarette, the flying snake's body had shrunk to the size of a human. Moreover, within the black flame, a dark-skinned woman covered in scales slowly appeared. The woman transformed from the flying snake had no sense of shame. The moment she revealed herself, she immediately retracted the black flames around her body. She turned her head to look at a spot in the sky. Her pitch-black eyes, which were almost emotionless, revealed a fierce look. Between her nearly black lips, her scarlet tongue was still sticking out like a snake's forked tongue. Humph! A cold snort resounded from midair. Soon after, a ball of water vapor exploded like a water droplet. Xiao Hua's figure was revealed. Fu Jiwen's face was somewhat pale as he stood at the side. Hiss hiss! When the woman saw Xiao Hua, she first opened her mouth to reveal 2 fangs. However, immediately after, a trace of fear appeared in her eyes. The woman's body that had just appeared trembled as if she wanted to return to her original form. Xiaohua raised his hand and a Taoist robe appeared out of thin air. It fell on the woman's body. Then, with a wave of his hand, the Taoist robe wrapped around the woman and flew her several miles away. The woman stood in the air very inexplicably. She looked at Xiaohua in the distance and then looked at the Taoist robe on her body. Her body twisted and turned as she landed on Yuling Bay. Under the Taoist robe, her waist looked very graceful. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to imagine that under the Taoist robe was a snake's tail. Hee, Master is becoming more and more compassionate. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. If it was an ordinary Confucian cultivator, they would have already drawn their swords. After all, this snake demon devouring the demon core of a bird demon isn't a big deal. However, if it transformed into a human form, especially a woman's appearance, it would be a danger to ordinary men of the human race. Xiaohua was slightly embarrassed. He touched his nose and said, Master didn't think that much. It's just that this woman is very inappropriate. Moreover, after transforming into a human form, Master would be embarrassed to attack. Hee. Fu Jiwen chuckled. Isn't this the legendary tenderness for the fairer sex? As he spoke, Fu Jiwen looked down at Yuling Bay. Seeing such a large bay, Fu Jiwen couldn't help but exclaim, Master, this is Yuling Bay? Which country's territory is this? How can there be such a large city? If you don't know, then Master knows even less. Xiaohua glanced at Fu Jiwen and said helplessly, Master only obtained Ao Zhantian's jade eyes. There is a record of this location and the name of this bay. The bits and pieces of information about these bays in the North Sea were only found in the ancient records of Confucian cultivators. The ancient records of Confucian cultivators don't have much information about these remote places. It also doesn't seem to say which country's territory this is. Disciple understands. The paleness on Fu Jiwen's face gradually faded. He smiled and said, I'm afraid this is what we Confucian cultivators often call an uncivilized land. It's a place that our teachings can't cover. The teachings of Confucian cultivators are good, but they have always been inflexible. Sometimes they even think too highly of themselves. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He pointed and said, If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, how could I have known that the uncivilized land described in the books was so prosperous and beautiful? Master is wrong. Fu Jiwen defended himself. The uncivilized land is a place that Confucian cultivators can't reach. It doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't prosperous. From the outside, this Yuling Bay is incomparably beautiful, but who knows how dirty it is inside. Master, didn't you see that snake demon? Did it turn into a beauty and fall into Yuling Bay? Who knows what it's doing inside? However, as he spoke, Fu Jiwen looked at the North Sea again and sighed. This disciple has never been to the seaside. The North Sea is so majestic, so magnificent, and so boundless that even the thousands of poems in the scroll can't describe it. This is true beauty. The true landscape of heaven and earth. What you see is only the surface. This is the calm beauty of the sea. Xiaohua smiled. When you see the tsunamis and storms, you'll understand the terror of the sea and the wrath of heaven and earth. It's not something that can be seen with your imagination. Disciple is very much looking forward to it. Fu Jiwen looked at the horizon in the west. The setting sun had already dyed the seawater in the horizon a dark red. He said meaningfully, The ancients say that one can't travel 1,000 miles without taking a few steps. If one can't travel 1,000 miles, one can't leave the sea of books. It really is so. Xiaohua looked at the lights in the distance and the fish demons swimming and flying on the surface of the Yuling Bay. He said in a low voice, Disciple, don't drop your book yet. Let's go look for the dragon generals stationed at Yuling Bay and see if Ao Zhantian and the others are still waiting for us here. We'll make plans after that. Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen retracted his longing from falling into the sea and followed Xiaohua to Yuling Bay. Yuling Bay was very big. Xiaohua knew that there were hidden dragons and crouching tigers inside, so he didn't dare to release his divine sense. He only took a glance and flew towards the nearest mountain range. This mountain range was the tallest among the many that extended into the North Sea. The ridge left on the land stretched for more than a few hundred miles. There were some pavilions and caves on the ridge and in the valleys. Some had lanterns and some had pearls embedded in them. In front of these pavilions and caves, there were either cultivators flying by or demons riding on demonic clouds. Of course, there were also some groups of burly men walking by. At the same time, there were countless noises coming from the top and bottom of the mountain ridge. Some were the sounds of music and some were noisy. There were the languages of the hidden immortal continent and also the languages of the thousand demon sacred realm. Occasionally, one could even hear the chant of Amitabha Buddha. Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen descended from midair and stood at the bottom of the mountain ridge. The place where the two people landed was a reddish-brown mountain rock. It was very hard, and occasionally, there would be some fine sand floating on top of it. At the bottom of the mountain ridge was a valley with a radius of dozens of miles. There were strangely shaped buildings in the valley. Xiao Hua stood on a slightly higher ground and there weren't any humans or demons nearby. Master. Fu Jiwen glanced to the left and said in a low voice, "The buildings in this valley seem to be built by imperial equipment or demon equipment. If there are more patrolling soldiers and more villagers in this valley, it will be very similar to a country's capital." That's right. Xiao Hua nodded. If there are some Dao sect restrictions, it will be similar to the big cities where Dao sect cultivators live. Click on the Chinese network's official account, add friends on WeChat, add a public account, type Dread, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Follow Dread's official account on WeChat now. Chapter 39-13. Big City. Fu Jiwen was slightly stunned. He didn't understand what Xiao Hua meant. Of course, he didn't know that in Xiao Hua's eyes, Yuling Bay was extremely similar to the 10 big cities of the country of Xi in the Xiaoyu continent. However, it seemed that Yuling Bay was much bigger than the 10 big cities of the country of Xi. The North Sea Dragon Palace is the overlord of the North Sea. Xiao Hua squinted his eyes and looked at the buildings and the cave on the stone wall in the distance. He said in a low voice, "Even if they don't control Yuling Bay on the surface, I won't believe that Yuling Bay isn't in their hands. If the North Sea Dragon Palace has such ambitions, it's naturally easy for them to control Yuling Bay." Fu Jiwen nodded and said, "However, if they really do control it, there won't be too many demons and cultivators coming from Yuling Bay. Especially the demons of the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. They like to do as they please. Presumably, they can do whatever they want in Yuling Bay. Only then can they really attract them. Let's ask this person." Xiao Hua looked at some cultivators coming out of some buildings and said. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, "Master, please wait a moment. Disciple will ask about the North Sea Dragon Palace's encampment here." Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to take a few steps, a demon with scales all over its body and a single horn on its head walked out from a tent-like building less than 100 zhang away from Xiao Hua. This demon was only a few feet tall and somewhat similar to an ordinary human. The demon saw Xiao Hua standing and Fu Jiwen hurriedly walking over with a glance. The demon's eyes turned and its body floated up and flew directly towards Fu Jiwen. "Fellow Immortal." The fish demon's voice was somewhat hoarse and the human language in its mouth was even more difficult to pronounce. However, the fish demon's hands were very respectfully bowing towards Fu Jiwen. "Oh. Fellow Immortal, please." Fu Jiwen was slightly stunned. He stopped and cupped his hands in return and said, "May I know what Fellow Immortal needs? May I ask if Fellow Immortal has just arrived at Yuling Bay? Are you looking for someone?" The fish demon straightened up in a serious manner. The black mist on the lower half of its body, which resembled a fish tail, surged slightly, and a pair of human-like legs appeared. Fu Jiwen nodded. "You're right. I came to Yuling Bay with my master to look for someone." The fish demon coughed twice and seemed a little embarrassed as he said, "Ahem, my name is Yu. I have lived in Yuling Bay for more than 400 years. There is no one in Yuling Bay that I don't know. If Fellow Immortal wants someone, I can help." This. Fu Jiwen was a little hesitant. He naturally knew that this fish demon would not help for free. He did not know what his master was thinking. Seeing Fu Jiwen hesitate, the fish demon quickly said, "Don't worry, Fellow Immortal, my fee is very fair. With my guidance, the King Sea Whale won't ask Fellow Immortal for more fees." Sea Whale King? Fu Jiwen rolled his eyes and immediately understood what the fish demon meant. Just as he was about to turn his head, Xiao Hua's voice came from behind him. "Hey, who is this Sea Whale King? How much do you charge?" Oh, this must be Senior. Yu was very tactful. He quickly cupped his hands and said, Junior greets Senior. And get up. Xiao Hua waved his hand. You answer my question first. If the price is fair, there is nothing wrong with it. Yes. The fish demon quickly replied. There are 3 forces in Yuling Bay. One is the North Sea Dragon Palace, another is the King Sea Whale, and the last one is the human race's Sea Spirit Scholar. This place is under the King Sea Whale's control. Any human or demon race that comes to Yuling Bay must give the King Sea Whale some sea crystals as tribute in exchange for the King Sea Whale's protection. Otherwise, even if they are killed by other demons on the spot, no one will care. The amount of sea crystals given to the King Sea Whale is not fixed. If Senior is not familiar with the King Sea Whale subordinates, you may give a lot of sea crystals. I am a native of this place. Senior can be considered as my old friend. You only need to give me 10 middle-grade sea crystals. Since you are here, you must follow the customs. Xiao Hua smiled and said, This old man can give you some benefits. However, this old man does not have any sea crystals. I only have primeval stones that are commonly used in hidden immortal continent. I wonder if it is possible? Of course. The fish demon's eyes flashed with joy. It seems like his goal is precisely these primeval stones. Senior only needs to give Junior 5 upper-grade primeval stones. You don't need to worry about anything else. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and ordered, Disciple, give him 5 upper-grade primeval stones. Yes, Master. Fu Jiwen took out the primeval stones from his bosom and placed them in front of the fish demon. He smiled and said, You better hold them well. Don't lose them. Otherwise, this old man will not forgive you. Rest assured, immortal friend. The fish demon took the primeval stones and patted his chest. He said, I am different from other demons. I am a demon that keeps my word. After saying that, the fish demon pointed at a small palace in the distance and said, Immortal friend and Senior, please wait a moment. This old man will help you too get the King Sea Whale certificate. With this, the 2 of you can walk around Yuling Bay as you wish. Seeing the fish demon turn around and fly away excitedly, Fu Jiwen smiled bitterly. Since the North Sea Dragon Palace is one of the 3 major powers in Yuling Bay, he came here with his master to find the North Sea Dragon Palace. Naturally, there is no need to pay any tribute to the so-called King Sea Whale. Fortunately, not long after, the fish demon came back as promised. He was holding 2 jade pendants in his hands. He said with a smile, This is the King Sea Whale certificate. Senior and immortal friend, please take it. Although this place is not under the jurisdiction of the King Sea Whale, this certificate is still useful. Both the North Sea Dragon Palace and the Sea Spirit Scholar's Power have recognized it. Xiao Hua took the jade pendant and looked at the vivid and lifelike sea whale on it. He casually held it in his hand and said, Hey, this old man wants to find the North Sea Dragon Palace's forces in Yuling Bay. Bring this old man there. The fish demon was shocked. He looked up and down at Xiao Hua and said, Senior, are you really looking for the North Sea Dragon Palace? Yes, what's so strange about it? Xiao Hua asked curiously, Could it be that you don't know where it is? How could I not know the North Sea Dragon Palace's Yuling Palace? The fish demon's scaly face didn't show any expression, but his eyelids were full of embarrassment. This little one can take the 2 seniors there. But this little one can't take back the sea crystals that have already been offered to the King Sea Whale. Hearing that Xiao Hua wanted to go to the North Sea Dragon Palace's Yuling Palace, the fish demon immediately changed the way he addressed the 2 of them. It doesn't matter. Xiao Hua sympathized with this kind of low-level demon the most. He waved his hand and said, You don't need to think too much about this. Just take me to the Yuling Palace. Moreover, this old man only wanted to ask about one thing. I still need your help later. Okay, 2 seniors, please follow this little one. Hearing this, the fish demon was very happy. While speaking, he took Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen to another mountain ridge. Yuling Bay was naturally not a good place. Sure enough, there were some fiendish demons and even some big and burly villains blocking them. However, the fish demon didn't show the token of the King Sea Whale. Instead, he proudly pointed at Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen, saying that they were guests of the Yuling Palace. Those people and demons obediently retreated. No one dared to say a word. Xiao Hua followed the fish demon and flew over 3 mountain ridges. When they arrived at the innermost mountain ridge, they saw a palace that covered the entire mountain ridge. Xiao Hua naturally understood that this was the Yuling Palace that the fish demon spoke of. This palace was so dazzling. Not only were there countless treasures and artifacts flashing in front of these palaces, but the palaces themselves also emitted 7 colored rays of light. As long as a cultivator wasn't blind, as long as they approached this mountain ridge, they would definitely be able to see it. However, Xiao Hua didn't fly to this mountain ridge. Instead, he chose another mountain ridge. Xiao Hua touched his nose and smiled bitterly. He slightly turned his head to look at Fu Jiwen. Fu Jiwen's expression was also strange. Although he didn't show it, his thoughts were actually the same as Xiao Hua's. To be able to find people to this extent, it was really difficult for Xiao Hua. After flying over the mountain ridge, the fish demon immediately landed on the ground. The demon aura on his body dissipated a lot. At the same time, his hands turned into fins. The fish demon said in a low voice, "Senior, the Yuling Palace previously didn't allow us low-level fish demons to appear. Moreover, all people and demons can't fly within 10 miles of the Yuling Palace. If Senior has any matters, you can ask before going to the palace. This little one doesn't dare to go there." And Xiao Hua nodded. "You wait here. This old man will be back soon." Xiao Hua walked towards the Yuling Palace. Before he could enter, a sharp gaze swept over from the front of the palace door. Then, a tall and sturdy shrimp general holding a 3-pronged fork arrogantly walked in front of Xiao Hua. He raised the fork in his hand and blocked Xiao Hua's path. He said coldly, "Human, this is the Yuling Palace of the North Sea Dragon Palace. Those who aren't of the North Sea clan are not welcome. You'd better step back." Humph. Xiao Hua coldly snorts, releasing the pressure from his body. Crack. The trident in Prawn General's hand falls to the ground. Although Prawn General's whole body is trembling, he still cries out, "You! What are you doing? Could it be you want to attack my North Sea Dragon Palace?" "Damn it!" Xiao Hua withdrew his spiritual pressure and said coldly, "This old man just came to find someone and ask something." The shrimp general bent down to pick up the 3-pronged fork with lingering fear. He gathered his courage and shouted, "Who are you looking for? What do you want to ask?" Xiao Hua was too lazy to talk to him. He raised his hand and took out Ao Zhantian's token and handed it to the shrimp general. "This is..." The shrimp general clearly didn't recognize Ao Zhantian's token. He didn't understand and asked in a low voice. Xiao Hua said indifferently, "This old man has a good friend who is a descendant of the North Sea Dragon tribe. This is his token. This year should be the day of the Dragon Island selection. This old man wants to meet him." "Senior, please wait a moment." When the shrimp general heard that Xiao Hua was a good friend of a descendant of the North Sea Dragon tribe, his body trembled. He hurriedly smiled and said, "This matter has already happened for several months. This little one doesn't know the details. This little one will ask the deacon of the palace to come out." Chapter 39:14. And go. When Xiao Hua heard that several months had passed, he knew that the situation was not good. He waved his hand impatiently and let the shrimp general leave. The shrimp general slightly bowed and ran all the way into the palace and disappeared. Xiao Hua quietly waited with his hands behind his back. At this time, there were still several shrimp generals standing guard outside the Feather Spirit Palace. Rumble! Just when Xiao Jiang had entered for less than half a cup of tea's time, suddenly, the sound of thunder resounded from the horizon. Then, a loud and clear dragon roar came from the thunder. After the dragon roar, multicolored clouds surged, and a huge gray dragon stepped on the clouds and landed. The dragon's might on the dragon's body assaulted Xiao Hua's face, almost wanting to push him down. However, the dragon also did not dare to land in front of the Feather Spirit Palace. It had already shrunk its body on the side of the mountain ridge and slowly flew over. When it flew close to Xiao Hua, the clouds around its body scattered and the dragon's body turned into a human form. Its body was also wearing a shining armor as it swam towards the Feather Spirit Palace. However, although the dragon general's armor was shining brightly, it was already damaged. There were even some bloodstains on the armor, and some of the bloodstains had not even dried up yet. It was clear that the dragon general had not been in battle for long. Such a big movement naturally attracted Xiaohua's attention. Xiaohua had already noticed it before the giant dragon transformed. At this time, Xiaohua's gaze fell on the palm of the dragon general. A palm-sized dragon scale was tightly held by the dragon general. It was the dragon shell that was commonly used in the dragon palace. Seeing Xiaohua looking at the dragon shell in his hand, the dragon's eyes flashed fiercely. Its other dragon claw slightly clenched, as if it was guarding against Xiaohua. Xiaohua saw this and smiled slightly. His figure silently floated a few dozen meters away, and raised his hand to make an inviting gesture. The dragon's mouth that had not transformed opened slightly. The dragon's aura around its body did not dissipate, but became denser and denser. Goldie no longer paid attention to it. It slightly lowered its head and looked at the ground in a daze. General Ao Xian, you're back? A few of the prawn generals in front of the palace gate had already seen the dragon general flying over. A few of them came out to greet him, and they seemed to be very attentive. Some of the smarter ones even asked with concern, "Where did you go to exterminate the sea demons? Looks like you've gained quite a lot. I'm sure the Hall Master will reward you handsomely again." "Humph, let's go in first." Ao Xian waved her dragon claw and said disdainfully, "There are too many people here. You'll get into trouble." Although Ao Xian pretended to be disdainful, there was a hint of arrogance in her tone. If it was not for the fact that he could not see through these servile shrimp generals, then it was because he had really made a great contribution. The inside of Long Bay was enough for him to report to the Hall Master. Several shrimps led Ao Xian into the palace. When Ao Xian entered the palace, he strangely turned his head to look at Xiaohua. Not only because there was usually no one waiting in front of the Feather Spirit Palace, but also because Ao Xian had a very subtle feeling in his heart. He couldn't help but turn his head. Unfortunately, Xiaohua still had his head lowered and didn't look to the side. He was quietly acting like a handsome man. Not long after Ao Xian entered, a loud sound came from the palace gate. This sound was like a huge rock falling, shaking the ground of the Feather Spirit Palace slightly. Xiaohua looked up and saw a huge monster of more than 10 zhang tall walking out of the Feather Spirit Palace. However, when Xiaohua saw the appearance of this huge monster, the corners of his mouth unconsciously curled up, and he almost laughed out loud. Although this sea demon was very tall and big, there was a huge mouth on its house-like head. This mouth took up more than 60% of the head. The two nostrils on the mouth were facing upwards, and a slightly transparent bubble was expanding and contracting above one of the nostrils. Behind the nostrils was a small face, and on the face were two eyes that looked like mung beans. Of course, these eyes might not be small, but compared to the big mouth, weren't they just mung beans? The funniest thing was that there were two extremely small ears on both sides of the sea demon's head. These ears actually moved up and down with the sea demon's movements, as if they were happy butterflies dancing in the air. The sea demon walked out of the Feather Spirit Palace, but it didn't speak. Instead, it took a few deep breaths, and the bubble in its nostrils became a few times bigger. Then it looked at Xiaohua with its small eyes and asked arrogantly, "You are Ao Zhantian's guard?" "And I am." Xiaohua nodded. His expression was very calm. "You are late. Your master has already gone out to sea 4 months and 3 days ago." The sea demon blinked its eyes and returned Ao Zhantian's token to Xiaohua. It looked at Xiaohua and said, "I don't know how you are a guard, but you are actually so late. However, since you can't go with him, you can just stay in the Feather Spirit Bay. In any case, you can save your life. It's better than throwing away your life." This general. Xiaohua saw that although the sea demon looked ferocious and its voice was very loud, its tone was very calm. He couldn't help but smile and ask, "May I ask where Ao Zhantian went? Can I go there now?" The place Ao Zhantian and the others are going to is naturally the place where the Dragon Tribe's descendant selection is held. The sea demon's reply was watertight. "Since you are not going, then don't ask. As for rushing there, don't even mention it. The Dragon Tribe's descendant selection is the most sacred thing in the Dragon Palace. How can you go there just because you want to?" After saying that, the sea demon waved its hand and prepared to turn around impatiently. However, just as it turned around, Xiaohua smiled, and a dark green light flashed in his eyes. Then he asked, "Did Ao Zhantian go to the Dragon Island? If I go to the Dragon Island, how do I get there?" The sea demon's body stopped in place. Xiao Hua's voice was like the only sound in the entire world, and it was also like a supreme imperial edict. It had no choice but to answer. Ao Zhantian did not go to the Dragon Island. I don't know where the Dragon Island is, so I don't know how you can get there. Then where did Ao Zhantian and the others go? Did they go to the North Sea Dragon Palace? If I go there now, will I be able to make it? Xiao Hua still had a smile on his face, but he waved his hands slightly, and a silent restriction was set up. With Xiao Hua's cultivation, there wouldn't be too many demons or humans outside the restriction that could hear the conversation between the two. Ao Zhantian is a descendant of the dragon tribe, and he's one of the human cultivators selected by the Dragon Island. As such, he and the other human cultivators will be heading to the North Sea Dragon Palace first. There, they'll be heading to the Dragon Island with the demons of the Thousand Demon Holy Realm and the dragons of the North Sea Dragon Palace. The time to go to the Dragon Island has not been set. The humans of the Feather Spirit Bay left 3 months ago, and it is said that the humans of the Feather Spirit Bay left 10 days ago. Also, the demons of the Thousand Beast Sacred Realm always come late, so it won't be too late if you go now. I see. Xiao Hua understood. He thought for a moment and then asked, Then, can you send me to the North Sea Dragon Palace? We guards of the Feather Spirit Palace cannot return to the Dragon Palace at will without the Dragon Palace's edict. The sea demon's answer made Xiao Hua very disappointed. Also, returning to the Dragon Palace requires the dragon boat of the Dragon Palace, and the Feather Spirit Bay doesn't have one. Damn it, so troublesome. Xiao Hua sighed and thought to himself, Daoist Ao, it is not that I don't want to help you, but I really don't have a way to find you. And you can go back. Xiao Hua looked at the shrimp generals in the distance, and knew that he had attracted their attention. He looked into the sea demon's eyes and smiled. Remember, you didn't say anything to me, you only asked me where I came from. I'm afraid you are a spy from another faction. Yes, I know. I will go back now. The sea demon was very obedient, and turned to leave. Oh right, what is a sea demon? Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something and asked. I am a sea rhinoceros. The sea demon said without hesitation, and then continued to walk back to the Feather Spirit Palace. Xiao Hua waved his hand to remove the restriction, and his feet slid, and his figure floated towards the distant Yu and Fujiwen. The sea demon walked a few steps, and suddenly stopped, and raised his hand to scratch his head, and then looked at Xiao Hua's back and muttered, Eh? What's going on? It seems like, that cultivator just now looked quite handsome. To think that such a peerless cultivator would become Ao Zhantian's bodyguard. What a shame. Not to mention the sea rhinoceros returning to the Feather Spirit Palace, Xiao Hua walked in front of Fujiwen and Yu. Fujiwen couldn't see Xiao Hua's expression, and hurriedly asked, Master, how is it? Forget it. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Let's not talk about this anymore. Master has failed to keep the appointment. All right. Fujiwen knew that Xiao Hua didn't want you to hear anything, so he nodded and said, In that case, disciple will accompany Master back to Su Province. Okay. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, and knew that Fujiwen missed his mother, and replied, There is nothing else, let's go back. Master will also be looking for that place along the way. When the fish monster heard that Xiao Hua and Fujiwen were about to leave, he hurriedly said with a smile, Seniors, it's already late, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Even if you want to leave, you should wait until tomorrow. Oh. Why? Does Feather Spirit Bay not allow cultivators to freely enter and leave at night? Fujiwen asked curiously. The fish monster hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, of course Feather Spirit Bay doesn't prohibit cultivators from entering and leaving at night, but once you leave Feather Spirit Bay, there is always more danger at night, and it's not as safe as during the day. Furthermore, you two seniors have just arrived at Feather Spirit Bay, and you haven't seen the benefits of Feather Spirit Bay, so why are you in such a hurry to leave? If someone asks about it one day, won't you not know? Wouldn't you have wasted your trip to Feather Spirit Bay? Haha. Xiao Hua laughed. The so-called danger at night and safety during the day may be true for ordinary people, but for cultivators, how could they distinguish between night and day? However, what this fish demon said was also somewhat reasonable. Since they had come from afar, leaving without taking a look would really be a waste of time. Although Xiao Hua knew that this fish demon wanted to earn some extra primordial stones, he still asked, Since that's the case, why don't you tell me about the benefits of Yuling Bay, Maybe this old man will stay. Chapter 39:15. Hearing this, the fish demon was overjoyed. He raised his hand and said with a smile, "Please come this way, this little one will accompany the seniors as we talk." Fu Jiwen smiled and nodded. He raised his hand and said, "Master, please." Soon after, 2 people and 1 demon left the Feather Spirit Palace and walked towards the depths of various buildings. Although these buildings didn't have a complete plan and were different from ordinary big cities, streets were formed between the buildings. At this time, there were already a lot of demons and humans on the streets. Most of these demons were from the Sea Clan. They either flew on the ground with their tail fins or jumped on the ground with their legs surging with demon chi. On the contrary, there were fewer humans like Xianxia. Xianxia looked around. The further away from the Feather Spirit Palace, the more demons there were. Moreover, on the streets, there were some strange carriages from time to time. These carriages weren't pulled by ordinary horses. They were pulled by some sea creatures, crabs, sea creatures, and occasionally, a few mermaids could be seen. As for those carriages, they were even more strange. Some looked like fish, some looked like reefs. In short, none of them looked ordinary. What was special was that these carriages didn't have wheels. There were several conches under the carriages. Water vapor spurted out from the conches and lifted the carriages up. That fish demon said while walking, "I'll let the 2 seniors know. The benefits of the Feather Spirit Bay are really not easy to talk about. After all, the life here is completely different from the inland of the hidden Immortal continent. The Feather Spirit Bay is something that the inland of the hidden Immortal continent doesn't have. For example, the sea boat docked in the bay is a huge boat that can withstand the sea explosion. It's far from the river boats that the seniors saw in the inland. The iron palm wood used to build the sea boat is produced in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. Outside the sea boat, there are formations engraved by Tao sect cultivators. Inside the sea boat, there are mechanisms made by Mahis disciples. These mechanisms can defend and also control the sea boat. Oh, senior, don't look down on this sea boat. Although the flying boats used by the human race in the hidden Immortal continent can fly around in the air, if these flying boats fall into the sea, in a few days, they will definitely be smashed into pieces by the sea. In addition, there are many rare treasures from the North Sea in the Yuling Bay. Seniors, you can't see these rare treasures in the inland of the hidden Immortal continent." The fish monster said after racking his brains for a moment. Then he finally revealed his intention. "If you want them, I can take you to buy them at a cheaper price." Hee hee. Fu Jiwen stared at the fish demon and made a sound. However, there was a faint smile on his face. An awkward look appeared on the fish demon's face, and he hurriedly added, "Of course, all of you seem to be very powerful, so perhaps you've encountered some bottlenecks in your cultivation. There are also female cultivation furnaces in Feather Spirit Bay for human cultivators. If you need them, I can take you there." Xiaohua shook his head and said, "Let's not talk about anything else. Where can we buy the iron palm wood you mentioned earlier?" The fish demon was overjoyed, and he hurriedly pointed to the distance and said, "There. That's the Yazi auction house controlled by the North Sea Dragon Palace. If the 2 seniors are willing, this humble one can bring the 2 seniors over." But after the fish demon finished speaking, he hesitated and said, "However, as far as I know, the iron palm wood in the Yazi auction house is a bit flashy, and the sea crystals required are not cheap. If you want, I can take you to the Luo E Merchant Union. The things there are 30% cheaper than the Yazi auction house." Of course, Xiaohua wouldn't go to the Luo E Merchant Union directly. Instead, he asked, "Although the iron palm wood looks very precious, it is common in the Yuling Bay. Tell me, besides the Yazi auction house and the Luo E Merchant Union, where else can we buy the iron palm wood?" "I'll let you know. The Yazi auction house is controlled by the North Sea Dragon Palace, and the Luo E Merchant Union is controlled by the Thousand Devil Sacred Realm. Besides these 2, there are also Zhai Xinglu and Li Lai Trading Company." Zhai Xinglu. Xiaohua's heart moved, and he asked curiously, "Yuling Bay also has a Zhai Xinglu?" The fish demon was even more puzzled, and asked back, "Yes, besides Yuling Bay, there are also Zhai Xinglu in Yuxian Bay and other bays. According to the staff of the Luo E Merchant Union, there are also Zhai Xinglu in the Thousand Devil Sacred Realm. It is said that the Star Moon Merchant Union that controls Zhai Xinglu is a very powerful organization." This Jianghu Lu or Star Moon Merchant Union is so big. Why aren't they famous in the hidden Immortal continent? Xiao Hua was a bit puzzled. After all, he had seen Jianghu Lu in the Bronze Pillar country decades ago. But after so many years, he had traveled to many places and experienced many things. But he had never seen Jianghu Lu again. As for the so-called Star Moon organization and the Star Moon Palace that Jianghu Lu's Zhu Qing had mentioned to him, Xiao Hua had never heard of them again. Of course, Zhu Qing had also said that if Xiao Hua went to the hidden Immortal continent to ask any cultivator above the 3rd or 4th level of elemental power, no matter if it was a Taoist cultivator, a Confucian cultivator, a Buddhist disciple, or even a demon in the Thousand Devil Sacred Realm, would know about this Star Moon Palace. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's own space was a treasure trove, and he didn't need any Star Moon fate, so he had never asked. Until now, when he heard the name Jianghu Lu and Star Moon Merchant Union in the distant North Sea, he realized that maybe Zhu Qing wasn't bragging. Master, Fu Jiwen said with a smile, although your Confucian cultivation is extensive, you are still a Taoist cultivator in your bones. Although you have read many books, scrolls and teachings of Confucian cultivators, you still have a vague understanding of the structure of Confucian cultivators. Confucian cultivators have always been particular about everything, and only reading is of the highest quality. Scholars who read are the most respected among the people. As the saying goes, the granary knows etiquette, and food is the most important thing for the people. This farmer is ranked behind scholar. Without waiting for Fu Jiwen to finish speaking, Xiao Hua suddenly understood and nodded. If you want to do a good job, you must first sharpen your tools. If there is no worker, then there is no farmer, and it can't guarantee the benefits of scholar. Therefore, worker is ranked behind the two. As for merchant, it's not important, and it doesn't matter if there is something or not. This is what scholar, farmer, merchant is. Master, you know everything. That's exactly right. Fu Jiwen said with a smile. When I was at home, I often heard my father talk about the stench of copper coins and disdain to associate with merchants. Therefore, although this Star Moon Merchant Union is rich and imposing, it doesn't fall into the eyes of Confucian cultivator aristocratic families, and it's not often mentioned among the hidden Immortal continent's Confucian cultivators. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Fu Jiwen was right. His Confucian cultivation was even stronger than Taoist cultivation, but he always thought that he was a Taoist cultivator, and his thoughts were incompatible with Confucian cultivators. Of course, he wouldn't think of this. At the same time, he also understood why Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua insisted on calling him fellow immortal instead of fellow Taoist. That fish demon didn't know what the two were talking about. After waiting for the two to stop for a moment, he probed. These few families all have mansions in Yuling Bay. Which one do you want to go to? Mansions? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Is it where they trade things? Yes. The fish demon hurriedly nodded and pointed to the buildings and tents at the side. He explained, these are relatively small shops, and some are temporarily rented. The things inside may be real or fake. Yazi Auction House, Lilai Trading Company, and Star Picking House all have their own mansions. Xiao Hua nodded and thought for a moment before asking, they must be extraordinary to be able to establish themselves in Yuling Bay. If we talk about bidding, what are their characteristics? Yazi Auction House is controlled by the North Sea Dragon Palace. There are many treasures inside, and most of the rare things are produced in the North Sea. There aren't many things on the land. However, the North Sea is far beyond the hidden Immortal continent, and Yazi Auction House has the most things. The fish demon was very patient and explained with familiarity. The Lilai Trading Company is controlled by Sea Spirit Scholar. Most of the things inside are from the hidden Immortal continent. There are books of Confucian cultivators, imperial equipment, primordial arrays, and so on. Dragons and demons who like human poems also often go to the Lilai Trading Company. As for Star Picking House, the things inside are more complicated. Other than items of Confucian cultivators, there are also Buddhist items from the Western Paradise, relics, Buddhist artifacts, and Buddhist scriptures. The scale is slightly smaller than Yazi Auction House. At this point, the fish demon paused, as if hesitating. Xiao Hua smiled and asked, then what about the Luo Trading Company that you recommended just now? I'll let you know. The fish demon didn't dare to hide and said, Luo Trading Company is called a trading company, but its name is similar to Star Moon Trading Company. In fact, its strength is the weakest. Because it was just established, its e-mansions are extremely small, and its scale can't be compared to Star Picking House and Lilai Trading Company. However, it is small enough to guarantee that the things in Luoyi Trading Company are genuine and much more affordable than other places. And this old man knows. Xiao Hua understood the fish demon's thoughts. The Luoyi Trading Company must have some business methods. As long as the fish demon brought him there, the Luoyi Trading Company would definitely give the fish demon some benefits. Therefore, the fish demon encouraged him to go to the Luoyi Trading Company. However, Xiao Hua now had the bloodline of the Absolute Saint. Why would he still need thousands of demonic sage realm monsters? Therefore, after thinking for a bit, he rejected the Luoyi Trading Company. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, the fish demon knew that Xiao Hua wasn't interested in the Luoyi Trading Company, so he didn't dare to say anything more. He looked at the two and said, "Two seniors came from the interior of the hidden immortal continent. Presumably you don't lack things from the human race. If two seniors are interested, then this little one will bring two seniors to Yazi Auction House." All right. Xiao Hua nodded his head in agreement. The fish demon hurriedly raised his hand, and a very strange symbol flashed on the arm formed by demonic qi. Then, in a tent not far away, a ball of dark green demonic qi was blown out. Then, a jellyfish-like demonic qi appeared in front of Xiao Hua and the others. Behind it was a carriage that looked like a basket woven from seaweed. Chapter 39:16. Seniors, please. The fish monster respectfully raised his hand and said, "This is the sea carriage specially used by the Yazi Auction House. All the humans and monsters heading to the auction house can ride it for free." Hee, this North Sea Dragon Palace is really good at doing business. Fu Jiwen said with a smile, "Just this sea carriage method alone is not something that the Lianhe Merchant Union can imitate. No wonder others can't compete with the Yazi Auction House." Yes. The fish monster smiles and asks Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen to get on the car. He carefully sits in the front. The few tentacles of the jellyfish driving the car are waving vigorously. It seems that the jellyfish hates the fish monster very much. However, after the fish monster mutters a few very strange words, the jellyfish still obediently moves its tentacles and drives the car along the so-called street between the buildings at a fast speed. The sea carriage walked for no less than the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn. Seeing that the humans and monsters on the street were woven together, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. They had arrived at the side of the mountain ridge. Xiao Hua's eyes couldn't help but light up. He saw that this side of the mountain ridge was more than 10 li in size. The mountain ridge was embedded with pearls. Each pearl was the size of a fist. The brilliance of these pearls illuminated the nearby streets and the night sky. Moreover, these pearls were of different colors. The pearls of 5 different colors formed the 5 big words, Yazi Auction House, on the mountain ridge. These 5 big words were written in demon characters. However, as the color of the pearls changed, the 5 big words were also constantly changing between the inscriptions and dragon characters. Moreover, the countless pearls in the surroundings seemed to be surrounded by a layer of dazzling clouds that surrounded these 5 big words. Holy shit, it's really a big deal. Xiao Hua swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He resisted the urge to release his divine sense to pry some pearls down from the mountain ridge and muttered in a low voice. The fish demon at the front struggled to shift its greedy gaze away from the pearls. When the carriage stopped, it jumped off and respectfully said, "We have arrived at the Yazi Auction Hall. Seniors, please get off the carriage." Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen disembarked from the sea cart. Not far from them, a crab-like member of the oceanic race raised his hand, and the sea cart passed by. The member of the oceanic race placed a few pieces of blue crystal in the jellyfish's mouth, then jumped onto the sea cart. The jellyfish then pulled the crab away. Xiao Hua looked at it, his heart moved. He turned his head and asked, "Hey, how many high-quality sea crystals can a high-grade primeval stone of my hidden immortal continent be exchanged for?" "Thank you, senior." The fish monster didn't expect Xiao Hua to suddenly ask such a question. It panicked a little and said in a low voice, "If it's a water-type yuan stone, it can be exchanged for half a sea crystal. If it's other yuan stones, it can only be exchanged for 3 sea crystals." Then, without waiting for Xiao Hua to ask again, the fish monster smiled and said, "May I know if senior needs this little one to accompany you to the Yazi Auction House? If there is a need, I would like to ask Senior to give me some primeval stones, and I will go and purchase a certificate to enter the auction. Oh, this little one doesn't need to buy it. I only need to buy it for the two seniors. The entrance to the auction house is in front, right? Xiaohua looked at the place where the flow of people was and asked. Yes, it is in front. The fish monster hurriedly replied. There was still some expectation in its eyes. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, took out some primeval stones and said, I will have to trouble you to buy 2 certificates to enter the auction house. Yes, Senior. The fish monster took the primeval stones and hurriedly left. Xiaohua's gaze fell on the bottom of the mountain ridge that was inlaid with pearls. The bottom of the mountain ridge had already been hollowed out. There was a storefront. Outside the storefront, there were some stalls. On top of the stalls, there was a dazzling lineup of exotic treasures from overseas. There were pearls, corals, rusty antiques, or strangely shaped seaweed, and so on. At this moment, in front of every stall, there were some sea race people with dull faces, trying their best to pile up a very fake smile to deal with some cultivators and Yao race. All kinds of noisy words drifted along with the wind. The world is bustling for profit. The world is bustling for profit. Xiaohua looked at this messy area and didn't feel uncomfortable. Instead, a kind of familiar feeling arose. He said with a smile, the ancients really didn't deceive me. No matter if it's a human or a Yao, as long as they fall into the eyes of money, they are all the same. Yes. Fu Jiwen also sighed with emotion. Why didn't my Confucian ancestor demote this Shang to below the 4th rank? Because of this stink of money, humans are also Yao, and Yao are also humans. Boom! Although it was unintentional, the listener was interested. Fu Jiwen only casually said a sentence, but it was like a sudden clap of thunder that woke Xiaohua up. Xiaohua's heart was like a raging sea as he pondered. Yes, the reason humans are humans is because they have human nature. The reason demons are demons is because they have a demon form. But there is cruelty in human nature, and there is also benevolence in the hearts of demons. Perhaps humans and demons can be distinguished by appearance. But what about the roots? What should be used to distinguish them? Bloodline? Inheritance? Or, just like the pride of the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, they are the masters of the world? Humans like us are nothing but food for them. Then what about us humans? In the eyes of humans, aren't demons also inferior? Vulgar? Then at the beginning of ancient times, what were humans and demons like? It had to be said that as Xiaohua's cultivation gradually deepened, the hand of karma, the comprehension of the heavenly Tao, and so on allowed Xiaohua to gradually step into a mysterious cultivation realm, gradually allowing him to break away from the righteous path of ordinary cultivators. At the same time, it also allowed him to unconsciously start to have a completely new understanding of the entire world. Master, look over there. Fu Jiwen didn't realize the consequences of his words. He looked straight at a shop and said in a low voice, it seems to be the relics of some Buddhist sons of paradise. Relics? Fu Jiwen's words once again interrupted Xiaohua's train of thought. With a wry smile, Xiaohua withdrew his train of thought. He squinted his eyes and saw a bald sea demon in a shop about 1,000 feet away from him. He was talking to a few demon beasts. On the shop in front of the sea demon were some sariras of different sizes with faint Buddhist light. Xiaohua frowned slightly. He looked around and didn't see any Buddhist sons of Buddhists. He released his Buddhist sense and looked around. The doubt in his eyes grew stronger. Master, what's wrong? Fu Jiwen saw the doubt in Xiaohua's eyes and asked curiously, are these Buddhist sons' relics fake? They are indeed fake. Xiaohua was a little surprised and shook his head slightly, but I keep feeling that something is wrong. Hee. Fu Jiwen transmitted his voice. Master's Buddhist cultivation seems to be very powerful. Let's go over and take a look? And Xiaohua nodded. At this moment, the fish demon turned around and handed 2 thumb-sized fish rings to Xiaohua and Fu Jiwen. He said with a smile, this is the proof of 2 seniors. However, because my status in Yuling Bay is low and it's the first time 2 seniors have come to Yazi Auction House, you can only wait for the outer sea fish rings. Fu Jiwen took over the fish ring and saw that the fish ring was sparkling and translucent. There were a few demon characters that were flashing with brilliance and could be seen clearly. Fu Jiwen asked curiously, this outer fish ring, is there anything wrong with it? I'll let you know. The fish demon explained, Yazi Auction House is the same as the Lilai Trading Company and Zhai Xinglu. They divide the bidders into 8 levels according to their identity and wealth. The proof of each level is different. They can be dragons, phoenixes, whales, and other foreign objects are all fish. However, according to what I know, the proof of the 8 levels is not much. They only take up 20% of the total. The foreign objects take up 80% of the total. Zhai Xinglu and the Lilai Trading Company have restrictions on the qualifications of the 8-level bidders. They are afraid that some bidders do not have enough sea crystals after bidding for extremely expensive items. The North Sea Dragon Palace is not afraid of this. The Yazi Auction House does not have any restrictions. It's just that the seats of the foreign objects are different from the 8 levels. I remember that Zhai Xinglu can give a higher level after verifying the buyer's primordial stones. Can't Yazi Auction House be rare? Xiao Hua asked with interest. The fish demon shook his head. The North Sea Dragon Palace does not look at the buyer's sea crystals. Even if you take out a mountain of sea crystals, if the North Sea Dragon Palace feels that you do not have a reputation, they will not give you such proof. Hee, the North Sea Dragon Palace is indeed tyrannical. Xiao Hua took the proof and looked at the remaining primordial stones in the fish demon's hand. He waved his hand and said, You can keep the rest of the primordial stones for yourself. Thank you for your guidance. I will return to the mainland after bidding. You do not need to follow me. The fish demon hesitated. He was indeed overjoyed, but he was also a bit reluctant. After all, there were not many humans who could take out a few high-grade primordial stones as a reward. Xiao Hua's cultivation was unfathomable, but his attitude was especially amiable. This made the fish demon feel especially close to him. Therefore the fish demon smiled and said, I thank Senior for your generous gift. Although Senior does not need me to serve you inside, I will wait here. If Senior has any other requests in the auction, please do not hesitate to find me. Okay. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded. He did not say anything else. He turned and led Fu Jiwen to the shop not far away. Seeing that Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen did not enter the Yazi auction house, the fish demon raised his leg as if he wanted to follow them. However, thinking of Xiao Hua's previous words, he could only wait. Xiao Hua walked to the front of the shop. A few of the demonic beasts who were whispering to the bald man looked at Xiao Hua with some astonishment. Although they were still talking, they didn't pay attention to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua raised his hand and picked up a thumb-sized relic, carefully examining it. He saw that the relic's luster was dim, but the psychokinesis inside was still there. However, just from this appearance, the relic was not pure. Xiao Hua raised the relic to his nose and sniffed it. A faint smell of the sea floated out from the relic. Xiao Hua suddenly understood that these relics did not belong to ordinary humans, but to the North Sea's sea race who believed in Buddha. Alas! Xiao Hua sighed. Just now, he was still thinking about the difference between humans and beasts. Now he saw a living example. Although the sea race were also beasts, they could also believe in Buddha like humans. Therefore, a relic was born in the place where a beast core was condensed. However, Xiao Hua did not understand. Could these relics make the sea race who believed in Buddha also produce karma? Could they also cultivate the 9 transformations golden body? Chapter 39:17. Cough cough. Seeing Xiao Hua pick up the Saraira, the waiter had no choice but to stop talking to the several monsters. He coughed twice and asked impatiently, Don't look at it casually if you can't take out the sea crystals. These sea Saraira are very expensive. It's not something that ordinary people can buy. Xiao Hua glanced at the waiter, then looked at the several monsters who were talking to him. These monsters looked similar to skunks. Their small eyes were especially cunning and ferocious. The sharp teeth in their sharp mouths were slightly rubbing against each other, as if they would pounce at the slightest mistake. Xiao Hua smiled coldly, raised the Saraira in his hand and asked, Why is this called a sea Saraira? Is it because it came from the body of the sea race? Of course. The waiter said impatiently, If it came from the human race, it would be a Saraira. If you don't understand, don't touch it blindly, quickly put it down. Che. Fu Jiwen was a little angry and scolded, You opened this shop here, do you want to do business? If you want to do business, then be a little more amiable. With such malicious words, Who would leave sea crystals in your shop? Hee hee, the waiter smiled coldly. I have never seen a human race interested in sea sarira. Oh, of course, if you want it, 1 sea sarira for 1 high-grade primeval stone. As long as you take it out, these sea sarira are all yours. What about 1 top-grade primeval stone? Fu Jiwen knew that Xiaohua had a lot of primeval stones in his Chenkuan bag. Since Xiaohua came, he was naturally interested in these sea sarira, so he asked again. 1 top-grade primeval stone is naturally 100 sea sarira. The waiter replied without hesitation. Okay, how many sea sarira do you have here? Xiaohua smiled and asked. The shop assistant frowned and looked at Xiaohua. He scanned Xiaohua's body with his yuan shen, but he couldn't sense Xiaohua's cultivation level. He thought for a moment and said, There are about 2,000 of them here. Give me 20 top-grade yuan stones and you can take them all. So it's like this. Xiaohua nodded his head and took out 20 top-grade primeval stones. The primeval stones floated in the air, causing the sea monster's eyes to light up. However, just as the sea monster was about to reach out his hand to grab the primeval stones, Xiaohua suddenly waved his hand and all the primeval stones disappeared. What are you doing? The sea demon panicked. Didn't we agree on this? Who agreed with you? Xiaohua sneered. How could a mere sea sarira be worth a high-grade origin stone? This old man was just asking for the price. I never said I was going to take it away. How dare you make fun of me? That member of the sea tribe flew into a rage. Xiaohua smiled coldly and said indifferently, Oh, there was actually someone from the sea race who dared to make a move in front of the auction? I really don't know what you've done to the North Sea Dragon Palace. Stop. At this moment, a voice came from inside the shop. Another member of the sea tribe wearing worn-out armor came out. He glared at the shop assistant and said to Xiaohua with a smile, Sir, please calm down. This little shop assistant here thinks he's smart. If Sir is interested in these sea sarira, would you like to enter the shop for a chat? Seeing the owner of the store come out, Fu Jiwen, who was at the side, seemed to wake up from a dream. His face was a little hot. He did not expect that a member of the sea race would have such a cunning mind. He had actually used a strategy of provocation. He had underestimated the demon race and had almost fallen into their trap. Xiaohua's expression didn't change. He saw that there were already some sea tribe members coming over to watch the show. He floated into the shop. After Fu Jiwen also entered, the member of the sea tribe wearing worn-out armor glared at the shop assistant and followed him in. The interior of the shop wasn't big. There were also some pearls on the 4 walls, illuminating the whole shop. Under the brilliance of the pearls, there were some sea sarira of even better quality displayed all around the shop. Other than these sea sarira, the shop also had some Buddhist tools. However, these Buddhist tools were different from the 18 objects of Buddha. Some were knives and forks, some were corals, and some were in strange shapes. Xiaohua looked around and then looked at the owner of the shop. This member of the sea tribe was tall and sturdy, like a shrimp general. However, he didn't have any hair on his head. The shell on his body had some cloud-like patterns. Although the armor of this member of the sea tribe was worn out, the worn-out parts still flickered with a dark gold color. Obviously, the quality of the armor wasn't bad. Does Sir need some sea sarira as a sacrifice? The member of the sea tribe asked softly when he saw Xiaohua sizing him up. He didn't feel any uneasiness. His fist-like eyes stared at Xiaohua. When Xiaohua heard this, he asked curiously, Could it be that those who come here to buy sea sarira are all used as sacrifices? No. The member of the sea tribe shook his head. The majority of those who come here to buy sea sarira are from the sea tribe. They use these sea sarira to heal. The art of alchemy of you human cultivators isn't something that the sea tribe can compare with. Presumably, you wouldn't use such low-quality sea sarira to heal. Other than offering sacrifices, I can't think of any other reason. Xiaohua raised the sea sarira in his hand and asked again, How did you get this sea sarira? The 2 protruding eyes of the member of the sea tribe trembled slightly. He seemed to frown and said coldly, Sir, you're being nosy. My shop assistant offended you earlier. The sea sarira outside is 5 high-grade vitality stones. If Sir needs them, you can buy them with vitality stones. If you don't like them, you can leave. How you got this sea Sarira has nothing to do with, sir. Humph. Xiao Hua also snorted coldly. The whole shop suddenly turned cold. What's there to not talk about? Since you can commit murder, why don't you dare to talk about it? If it weren't for the soldiers coming from overseas, where would these sea tribe Buddhas fall into the cycle of reincarnation? These members of the sea tribe who wholeheartedly follow Buddhism probably never thought that after thousands of years of bitter cultivation, in the end, they would actually become medicine for the sea tribe to heal their soul injuries. Xiao Hua was wrong. The sea tribe didn't fear this cold at all. Although they sensed Xiao Hua's malice, the member of the sea tribe still sneered and said, "That's right, it's a massacre. The sea tribe is the sea tribe, not the human race. It's fine if you live the life of the sea tribe in the North Sea, but you want to be a merciful member of the sea tribe? You want to imitate the bald monk and chant Buddhist scriptures? Of course, if it weren't for their bitter cultivation of Buddhism, how would the sea tribe know that the sea Sarira has a miraculous effect on healing soul injuries? Isn't this the karma that the Buddhist sect's Vairocana Buddha spoke of? Besides, although Sir is a human, what qualifications do you have to say that we are sea tribe? Don't human cultivators also use the sea tribe Buddha Sarira as tonics? Sir, don't tell me you came to my shop to reincarnate these sea Sarira? Alas, Amitba. Xiao Hua sighed. This old man originally had this idea. I wanted to buy all these sea Sarira and reincarnate them one by one. However, if I didn't buy them, I wouldn't kill them. The more I buy, the more sea tribe Buddhas you will kill. How can I still buy them? Sir, you can choose not to buy them, but you can't make all the sea tribe members not buy them. The eyes of the sea tribe member trembled again, as if he was thinking intensely. He then said, as long as one sea tribe member buys them, these sea Sarira will exist in this world for a day. Xiao Hua looked at the sea tribe member and asked indifferently, "You seem to be from the North Sea Dragon Palace's army?" The sea tribe member waved his arms that were like pliers and answered, "That's right. If I wasn't a general in the army, how could I find so many sea Sarira?" No wonder. If you didn't do so many things that damaged your virtue, you wouldn't be punished by the heavens. Xiao Hua's eyes were like lightning. He looked at the shell inside the sea tribe member's armor and nodded. With the big hole in your abdomen, even the North Sea Dragon Palace would be helpless, right? Whether it damaged my virtue or not, this general doesn't know. The sea tribe member seemed to be somewhat agitated by Xiao Hua's words. He waved his pliers and shouted, "This general only knows that when a military order is given, even if this general's body is smashed to pieces, I will still charge forward." What a loyal general. Xiao Hua's words were incomparably sarcastic. This has nothing to do with you, sir. At this moment, the sea tribe general finally understood that Xiao Hua wasn't here to do business. He was more like a nitpicker. If you have no interest in these sea Sarira, please leave. Third master, third master. At this moment, an urgent voice came from outside. Then, a small sea shrimp rushed in from outside. Seeing that there was someone else in the shop, the small sea shrimp shut his mouth and stood to the side, not daring to say anything. "Chiu, what's the matter? But your grandfather." The sea tribe member ignored Xiao Hua and asked hurriedly. "Yes, Grandpa's stomach hurts again. I want to go to the apricot forest medicine shop to buy medicine for Grandpa." The small sea shrimp was somewhat embarrassed to speak in front of strangers. The sea tribe general didn't say anything and walked to the corner of the shop. He took out a few sea crystals and handed them to the small sea shrimp. He said, "Take these sea crystals first. It's better to buy medicine first." "Yes, third master." The small sea shrimp took the sea crystals and looked at them. He said embarrassedly, "But, the medicinal liquid of the apricot forest medicine shop has increased in price again." "Damn it!" The sea tribe general cursed and said somewhat helplessly, "Wait a moment. Grandpa will go and borrow some." Xiao Hua's heart was moved. He asked, "Chiu, did your grandfather fight together with your third master?" "Yes." The small sea shrimp said shyly, "My grandfather and third master fought across the 4 seas and made illustrious military achievements. However, after retiring from the army." "Why are you telling this to the human race?" The sea tribe general berated. "These humans are the most cunning. When they buy things they keep lowering the price. When they sell things, they use flowery words to raise the price. The medicinal liquid of the apricot forest medicine shop has been increasing in price every year for the past few years. Yes, third master. The small sea shrimp shrunk his neck and replied in a low voice. AI, this old man understands. Xiaohua took out a few top-grade primeval stones and said, Old sea shrimp, this old man wants the sea relics in your shop. These are primeval stones paid in advance. You can take them. But the sea tribe general stared blankly. He then waved his hand and said, This general doesn't need any charity. Furthermore, even if you buy these sea relics, this general will still hunt down the sea clans who have relics. Aren't your actions aiding the evildoer in his evil deeds? Chapter 39:18. Take it. Xiaohua passed the vitality stone to the small shrimp and sighed. Didn't you say it before? Even if I don't buy it, other demon clans will buy it and you will still go to the North Sea to hunt. Even if you don't go, other sea clans will go. In this world, as long as there are benefits, there will always be people who will do it, unless... Speaking of this, Xiaohua's eyes lit up again. That's right, the sea clans used the sea Saraira to heal because they didn't have Taoist alchemy techniques. They had no choice but to rely on the sea Saraira. However, when it came to alchemy, even Confucian cultivators didn't have the qualifications to speak. As long as Xiaohua could refine a spiritual pill to heal the soul, wouldn't he be able to take drastic measures and cut off the demon clan's dependence on the sea Saraira? Of course, this was only a thought in Xiaohua's mind. Refining pills was easy, but selling them was hard for Xiaohua to control. Just like in Fengxiang, even if Xiaohua had the seeds, he still had to rely on the government and the Zhu family's power to complete it. The Sea Clan general naturally didn't know that Xiaohua was thinking so much. He sighed, looked at the small shrimp and waved his hand. Qiu, take this vitality stone and go buy medicine first. Yes, third master. Little sea shrimp took the primordial stones and responded. Then, he bowed respectfully to Xiaohua and said, Thank you, Immortal Elder. Go, go. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, I can only help you up to this point. If you have the prescription of Xinglin drugstore, I can help you take a look and see what's wrong with the medicinal liquid. This. The small shrimp shook his head and said, Xinglin drugstore only gives medicinal liquid, they never give any prescription. And Xiaohua nodded. He knew that Xinglin drugstore must be holding something back. After all, they were all humans, so Xiaohua was embarrassed to say anything. However, the eyes of the sea species general at the side lit up as he thoughtfully looked at Xiaohua. After the little shrimp left, the sea species general's voice trembled as he said, Immortal. Immortal Elder, you know how to treat injuries? Yes, this old man can treat the injuries of the human race, but I have no interest in the demon race. Xiaohua didn't hide anything and explained, however, this old man does have some soul-nourishing and soul-nourishing pills here, which have some effect on the soul damage of the human race. It should also be useful for the monster race. That's why I wanted to leave some for the general. Immortal Elder. The sea species general's body trembled slightly. He stretched out his pincers, wanting to grab Xiaohua's arm. However, after stretching out his pincers, he felt that it was inappropriate. The pincers made a ka-ba sound in midair, as if he was extremely excited. Since Senior Immortal has such an immortal pill, then treating our broken limbs will definitely be a piece of cake. That's not true. Xiaohua waved his hand. Humans are humans, monsters are monsters, especially you sea races. This old man doesn't know what's inside your shells, and those pill recipes can't be used carelessly. This. The sea species general hesitated for a moment, as if thinking about something. Xiaohua took out a jade bottle and handed it to him, saying, This is a bottle of pills. If there are some people who come to your shop to buy sea relics and want to relieve the pain of their souls, you can give them some to try. If it works. Speaking up to here, Xiaohua hesitated. If this pill was effective, what could Xiaohua do? This was also his previous misgivings. He wanted to, but he was powerless. You can try it first. Xiaohua stuffed the jade bottle back to the sea species general and said, We'll talk about it later. The sea species general understood Xiaohua's intention as soon as he heard this. He once again pondered over Xiaohua's words and actions when he entered the shop. How could he not know what Xiao Hua was thinking? He was a person who was used to commanding troops, so he immediately made a decision. In an instant he blocked Xiao Hua's figure and said anxiously, "Immortal Elder, this humble one operates this shop purely for the sake of my old subordinates who are unable to survive after returning from war. This humble one doesn't understand other ways of doing business. These past few years, this shop has been barely holding on. If this shop wasn't bestowed by the Dragon Palace, this humble one would have been unable to hold on long ago. Just as Immortal Elder said, this humble one also doesn't want to kill too many sea species. Therefore, if Immortal Elder is willing, this humble one is willing to close this shop. Fellow Immortal Elder is thinking too much." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "It's not that this old man doesn't want to help you, but there are too many people interfering in this matter. This old man only came to participate in the auction, and then will have to return to the mainland. How can this old man concoct pills for you here?" "Immortal Elder, don't be anxious." The Sea Species General hurriedly shouted, "There's still an hour before the auction at Yazi Auction House. Immortal Elder, please wait a moment. This humble one will be back soon." After saying this, without waiting for Xiao Hua to say anything else, the general rushed out of the shop. "Master," Fu Jiwen, who was watching from the side, said in a low voice, "Can your pills cure the illness of these sea species?" "How would I know?" Xiao Hua said helplessly, "Usually when I see sea creatures, it's on a plate. When have I seen so many sea species? Our human race's pills definitely can't be given to the sea species. Who knows what kind of medicine might poison them? If it's something that nourishes the soul, it's probably the same." Fu Jiwen said again, "But the problem is, the demonic beast race. After all, they're not humans. Those who aren't of our race are bound to have different intentions. This old man can't be at ease." "It's indeed a little difficult," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "but what if my fortune gate can refine these pills?" "Hee, master. Who do you plan to pass on your alchemy skills to?" Fu Jiwen immediately understood Xiao Hua's plan. He narrowed his eyes as if he could see a mountain of origin stones. I can't see it for the time being." Xiao Hua sighed and said, "You can inherit Master's array formation skills. With this array formation skill alone, it shouldn't be a problem for you to cultivate to the Literature Saint realm. As for the Literature Star realm, it depends on your luck. Yuanya's temperament is simple, and he cultivates Master's secret art. This secret art leans towards body cultivation. Asking this guy to refine pills is probably harder than picking up an embroidery needle. Wu Tian is talented in divination and seems to know how to refine pills, but his foundation is not solid enough, so he might not be able to inherit Master's alchemy skills. Chang Yuan and Yu Zhongquan walk the Ranger's flying sword Dao, and when they cultivate to the peak, they should be able to cultivate to the Literature Saint realm. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei are still young. Although they are talented and can inherit Master's Buddhist and Confucian cultivation techniques, when it comes to refining pills and smithing, Master can't say for sure." "Master." Fu Jiwen was a little dumbfounded, his eyes sparkling like stars. "You actually cultivate so many cultivation techniques, ah. Although you don't sleep, but I don't see you in closed-door cultivation, ah. How on earth did you cultivate?" "I can't say." Xiao Hua shook his head slightly. Fu Jiwen prostrated himself in admiration. Each of his 7 disciples could cultivate to the Literature Saint realm by inheriting one cultivation technique from Master. Then what about Master? To what extent could he cultivate? Xiao Hua naturally understood Fu Jiwen's thoughts, and said with a straight face, "Disciple, everyone has their own fate, you can't force it. Some of Master's secret techniques are not suitable for you, so you only need to cultivate your heavenly book to the peak." "Yes, disciple understands," Fu Jiwen hurriedly answered. Xiao Hua continued, "As for Xiong Yi, His Highness Lan, Li Xiang, and Chang Yu, they already know how to refine pills. Moreover, before Master left the Fortune Gate, I left them some alchemy and smithing secret techniques, but I don't know how much they can comprehend in the future. In fact, Chang Yu has a wood element physique, so Master thinks he has a chance. Of course, if possible, the 4 of them will each take charge of a sect, one for smithing, one for alchemy, and the other 2 will be gatekeepers for Master." "Haha, Master, gatekeepers are He Xiong's job, others can't snatch it away." Fu Jiwen laughed. But 3 senior brothers' array formation skills are really not that good. How about this disciple also take charge of one sect in the future? And, sooner or later, each of the inner disciples will take charge of one sect. Xiaohua nodded. If you have this idea, then it's best. Disciple. Should marry Baiyan first. Fu Jiwen shrunk his neck and laughed. How come you're as useless as master? Xiaohua slapped Fu Jiwen's head and pretended to scold him. Senior Immortal. Senior Immortal. While they were talking, the Sea Tribe General ran in, followed by the little sea shrimp. The little sea shrimp was supporting another old sea shrimp, and behind the old sea shrimp was a rather graceful sea snake. Grandpa, this is the Senior Immortal, he just gave us the source stones. The little sea shrimp was still very shy, and whispered to the old sea shrimp. This one thanks Senior Immortal. The old sea shrimp bowed with difficulty. His body was wrapped in dried seaweed, and that seaweed was like a piece of hard paper covering his abdomen. You're welcome. Xiaohua waved his hand. Those source stones were used to purchase this place's sea relics. After the Sea Tribe General shouted and entered, he hurriedly raised his hand and pressed it against the wall. The light in front of the shop surged, and the previously open shop door gradually disappeared. What are you doing, fellow immortal? Xiaohua was not afraid, and asked indifferently. Senior Immortal. The little sea shrimp could not help but fall on the ground and kowtow. Third Master said that Senior Immortal can cure this one's grandpa. This one kowtows to Senior Immortal, hoping that Senior Immortal can save grandpa. Every month, he is in so much pain that he hovers between life and death. If Senior Immortal can cure grandpa, this one. Get up. Fu Jiwen watched from the side, and stole a glance at Xiaohua's expression. He helped the little sea shrimp up and said, My master is the most benevolent. If he didn't want to help, he would have already left. Since he is here, of course, he is willing to help. However, my master has already said, did you bring the medicinal liquid from the apricot forest medicine shop? This one hasn't had the time to go yet. The little sea shrimp replied somewhat embarrassedly. May I ask for Senior Immortal's name and Dharma name? The sea snake in the distance looked at Xiaohua, and asked with some hostility. This one is Xiaohua. Dharma name is Taoist Xiao. Xiaohua replied. Taoist Xiao. The sea snake stared blankly, thought for a moment, and shook his head slightly. Senior Immortal is wearing a Taoist robe. You should be a Taoist cultivator. But this one seems to have never heard of a Taoist Xiao with great magical powers in the hidden Immortal continent. Click on the Chinese network's public account, WeChat friend, add public account, enter Dread, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Immediately follow Dread's WeChat public account. Chapter 39:19. N. Xiaohua did not mind at all. He looked at the Sea Race General and said, I'm afraid that fellow Taoist will be disappointed when you look for this person to test the medicine. The Sea Race General glared at the sea snake and said rather sternly, She dares. General Lu, the sea snake was helpless. You trust humans too easily. No wonder you have to live a miserable life while guarding this shop. If you listen to me, change. Are you going to eat it or not? The Sea Race General took out the pill that Xiaohua gave him and said, If you don't eat it, don't come and see me in the future. All right. The sea snake was helpless. He took the pill and threw it into his mouth without even looking at it. Then he stared at Xiaohua's small eyes with his big eyes. It seemed that the soul-nurturing pill did not have any reaction at all. Taoist Master Xiao. The Sea Race General said in a low voice, Don't think that Chi's words are unpleasant to hear. Back then, when she was under my command, she was resourceful. It was only because of her that I was able to protect the brothers under my command and achieve many military exploits. However, Taoist Master also saw that the Sea Race and the Yao race can be considered to have strong bodies. Ordinary weapons cannot harm us. However, our souls are much weaker compared to humans. Among the Yao race, there are many methods of fighting souls. As a result, many Yao race soldiers have their souls damaged. Fighting souls. Xiaohua was stunned. He really did not understand. Could it be that the Yao race he saw earlier were fighting with him using their fists and legs? How could they fight with soul techniques? If that was the case, then the Yao race actually knew soul cultivation? General, I am somewhat puzzled by your words. Xiao Hua voiced out his doubts. When the Sea Race General heard that Xiao Hua was actually able to fight with the moon-picking realm Yao race, he could not help but be even more alarmed. He hurriedly explained, of course, ordinary Sea Race people do not know about fighting souls. Only the Sea Race army would use it when they go on expeditions. Furthermore, this kind of secret technique is to kill 1,000 enemies and injure 800 of their own. They would not use it unless it is a crucial moment. The souls of humans are stronger than the Yao race. Moreover, the Yao race's physical body is far inferior to the Yao race. I see. Xiao Hua understood. The Sea Clan and the Monster Clan didn't obtain the complete soul cultivation inheritance. They only obtained some secret techniques. These secret techniques can't be taught widely and can only be used by the army. When he thought up to here, Xiao Hua's face suddenly went grim, and he said in a low voice, no matter what, you aren't the only one that hunts those Oceanic Clan Buddhist disciples. Yes. The Sea Folk General nodded and said, this is what I said just now. Even if I don't hunt, there will be others who will. However, the situation is far from being as serious as Taoist thinks. If these sea relics were useful, how could my shop still be struggling at death's door? When Xiao Hua heard this, his face eased up slightly and he asked curiously, could it be that the effects of the sea Saraira are limited? Well, if it's taken for the first time, it's usually effective. The Sea Folk General nodded. But if the symptoms recur after taking it, the pain will be twice as great as before. At that time, the sea Saraira won't have the same effect as before. If you consume it again, the pain will be 4 times worse than before when it flares up for the 3rd time. I understand. Xiao Hua nodded. But there will always be demons drinking poison to quench their thirst. Indeed. The Sea Folk General looked at the sea serpent with a gentle gaze. Drip didn't want to take it back then, but I forced him to. Although the symptoms recur later, the pain doubled again. Ah! At this moment, the sea serpent suddenly cried out and collapsed on the ground. How is it? It's acting up again? The Sea Folk General cried out. The sea serpent twitched a few times on the ground and stopped. It looked at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice, Taoist Xiao, is the medicine acting up again? It might be. Xiao Hua nodded. But I don't know how long it will take, and I don't even know if it's effective. Okay, I understand. The sea serpent simply ignored Xiao Hua and hid on the ground, waiting for the next attack. Taoist Xiao. The Sea Folk General looked at the sea serpent worriedly, then shifted his gaze away and said to Xiao Hua, let's put the matter of drip aside first. I believe in Taoist Xiao's pill. Let's see how effective it is. Now, I would like Taoist Xiao to take a look at Qiu's grandfather. His injury. Sigh, Taoist Xiao, our sea folk shell is 100 times stronger than that of the human race. Our shell can even heal itself. However, it can't withstand our repeated battles. In the past, his injury would heal in a day and a night, but later on, it couldn't heal anymore. The nobles of the Dragon Palace have precious pills to treat it, but us lowly sea folk don't have the chance. Taoist Xiao, if you have the slightest chance, you can give it a try. Ah! Not far away, the sea serpent cried out again and rolled on the ground. Come, let me take a look first. Xiao Hua indicated to the old sea serpent to lift the seaweed. Yes, Taoist Xiao. The old sea serpent trembled as it lifted the seaweed. A strong fishy smell mixed with a stench was emitted from the old sea serpent's body. Under the seaweed, there was a dark green pus. A hole the size of a human's head almost pierced through the old sea serpent's shell. Cover it up. Xiao Hua looked and frowned as he indicated. Taoist Xiao, how is it? The Sea Folk General's heart seemed to be seized as he hurriedly asked. Xiao Hua shook his head. I also know the Qi Huang technique, but that's only for the human race. I really don't understand the demon race, especially the Sea Folk shell. I can't prescribe the right medicine. The Sea Folk General's face was very disappointed, but he still said, What if I find Bei One in this field? Would Taoist Xiao be able to help? I can't guarantee this. Xiao Hua still shook his head. However, since the Apricot Forest Medicine Shop can refine the medicine, I shouldn't have any problems. Good. The Sea Folk General nodded. The time for the auction is coming. Daoist Xiao, you should go and participate in the auction first. I will go and look for Bei One who has some pill recipes. If I can find him, I ask Daoist Xiao to take pity on us. Xiao Hua nodded and said, I will go and participate in the auction first. Everything can wait until I come out. Daoist Xiao, take away all the sea serpents in my shop. The Sea Folk General said, if Daoist Xiao's pill is useful, I won't need to hunt these sea serpents in the future. General, you're giving me too big of a hat. Xiao Hua wouldn't easily fall for it. He said with a smile, my head isn't that big. It was unknown whether this Sea Folk General understood the illusion of sucker. However, from Xiao Hua's evasiveness, the Sea Folk General didn't want to force him. He could only say regretfully, if that's the case, Daoist Xiao, take away all the sea serpents in front of the shop. I will wait here for Daoist Xiao to return. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded. He waited for the Sea Folk General to open the shop door again. He looked at the shop assistant standing respectfully at the door. With a wave of his big sleeve, those dim sea serpents all fell into Xiao Hua's big sleeve. He then led Fu Jiwen towards the entrance of the Yazi auction house. The Sea Folk General sent them to the door. Seeing the two of them leave, he hurriedly returned to the shop. Not long after, he hurriedly came out again and went to another place. In the distance, the Sea Folk General watched Xiao Hua walk out of the shop. He then watched Xiao Hua follow a group of beasts and humans into the auction house. He hesitated for a moment before walking towards the shop. At this moment, it was already time for the Yazi auction house to start bidding. Therefore, many beasts and sea folk wore all kinds of clothes and armor and rushed towards one direction. Similarly, among the beasts, there were also many humans who, like Xiao Hua, followed the beasts and walked towards the entrance of the auction house. When Xiao Hua and Fu Jiwen arrived at the entrance of the Yazi auction house, they looked up and couldn't help but inwardly sigh in admiration. The stone wall in Xiao Hua's eyes was a huge portrait of the Yazi. This portrait was engraved in the mountain ridge. Similarly, there were thousands of pearls embedded in various parts of this portrait. Even though it was already late at night, all the beasts and humans could still see the ferocious and mighty aura of the Yazi. This Yazi's eyes coldly looked forward. Its big mouth was wide open. The entrance of the auction house was this big mouth. Damn it, isn't this the legendary walking into a trap? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. If this Yazi was alive, wouldn't the entire auction house be in its stomach? Master Nine Heavens had already used this trick in the past. Well, Master Nine Heavens must have seen this Yazi auction house before. That's why he thought of turning Master Clear Rain into a cave and trapping us cultivators. While Xiao Hua was thinking, he had already followed the beasts to the entrance. The entrance was not guarded by the beasts of the Dragon Palace. However, there was a thin layer of water curtain blocking the entrance. As long as a beast walked under the water curtain would produce a faint beast chi. When the beast chi landed on the certificate in the beast race's hand, the certificate would emit a thin layer of water vapor to cover the beast race. When the water vapor and the water curtain were close to each other, the beast race would enter through this connection without any abnormality. Xiao Hua also entered through the water curtain with the certificate. When he saw what was before him, Xiao Hua could not help but feel stupefied. This was because behind the water curtain was a huge domed hall. At the top of the hall were 9 beasts. They were the 9 dragon sons on the 9 dragon steel. The Yazi was surrounded by the other 8 dragon sons. Aside from the Yazi, the other 8 dragon sons also looked extremely vicious. The 9 dragon sons looked fiercely at the hall. An indescribable pressure came from above the heads of the beasts. Not only that, under the dome, the seats around the hall were like blooming flowers. These flowers were divided into 9 layers. Each layer was more gorgeous and noble than the last. In the center of these flowers was a huge coral-paved area that took up about 40% of the hall. The corals on the field were colorful, and the light slowly changed with the flow of people. Occasionally, the images of the 9 suns would be projected onto the corals, and the living demonic beasts seemed to be about to escape from the light. This is a good event where a pie falls from the sky. Cool phones are waiting for you. Click on the Chinese network's official account, WeChat friend, add official account, type Dread, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Follow Dread's official account on WeChat. Chapter 39-20. Gotcha! Countless tiny thunderbolts appeared at the edge of the water column, and then the entire water column condensed into a huge water sword. Clang, clang, clang. Suddenly, the whole auction hall was filled with the sounds of battle. The huge water sword pierced deeply into the ground in front of Old Tortoise, causing the whole auction hall to rumble. Looking at Old Tortoise's side, the originally blue walls suddenly had two big holes. Bang! Bang! As soon as the big holes appeared, the sound of loud footsteps came from inside the holes. Woo! Woo! The monsters standing on the seats began to boil up, shouting and yelling. Xiao Hua was baffled, but there was a strange demon formation restriction in the auction hall, and Xiao Hua was too lazy to use his divine sense to probe. He just waited for the things inside the holes to appear. In just a few breaths, two demon beasts rushed out from each of the two holes. The demon beast on the left was 100 zhong in size, and its body was tall and sturdy like a rhinoceros. It had a single sharp horn on its nose, and a pair of big ears on both sides of its head. Occasionally, wind blades would appear in a flash. The demon beast on the right was a size smaller than the rhinoceros, but its body was more vigorous. In this demon beast's big mouth, two sharp teeth were sticking out of its mouth, and the mane all over its body was erect, with some multicolored stripes on it. Especially this demon beast's 4 feet, there were sharp blades more than a foot long sticking out, and each blade was suffused with a dark green color. Xiao Hua glanced at them, and knew that these two demon beasts were called the male rhinoceros and Kuan Lai. They were extremely ferocious and fierce demon beasts in the Thousand Demons sacred realm. Ordinary people would have a hard time encountering them, but he didn't expect to encounter two at once. The two demonic beasts ran out from their respective caves and immediately saw each other. Their eyes, which were bigger than a human head, instantly turned red. Roar! The two demonic beasts roared at the same time. Their roars shook the entire auction field. Roar! Along with the roars of the demonic beasts, all the demonic beasts and oceanic clans became even more excited. They raised their heads and roared. The atmosphere of the auction field became even more arrogant than before. There should be a restriction in the auction house. The movements of the beasts and humans did not reach the auction house under the old tortoise. The old tortoise even stood steadily in the air between the two beasts, calmly looking at the two beasts. The previous two roars seemed to be a warning to each other. The two demonic beasts began to slowly circle around the center of the field. Their gazes were like sharp swords clashing rapidly in the air. Bite! 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 The roars of the demonic beasts rose and fell one after another. The demonic beast's pronunciation was filled with the taste of blood. The atmosphere of the auction field was pushed to the peak again. It was as if a spark could ignite the passion of all the demonic beasts. Roar! The Kuan Lai fruit was indeed famous for its ferocity. It was the first to be unable to hold back. Kuan Lai's 4 hooves dug into the ground. With a boom, several cracks appeared on the solid ground. Kuan Lai's entire body rose into the air and pounced on the male rhinoceros. Kuan Lai's figure was as agile as lightning. The sharp blades on his 4 hooves made a buzzing sound. The male rhinoceros, on the other hand, was somewhat caught off guard. Its entire body slightly retreated, and its blood-red eyes were still filled with fear. In just a few breaths, Kuan Lai had already pounced in front of the male rhinoceros. Kuan Lai nimbly dodged the sword in front of the male rhinoceros's head. The sharp blades on the 2 hooves in front of his head flashed with a cold light and slashed towards the male rhinoceros's neck. It was also at this moment that there was a loud puff, as if the male rhinoceros let out a loud fart. The male rhinoceros' huge figure suddenly rushed into the air without dodging at all. The male rhinoceros leap just happened to dodge Kuan Lai's hooves, and the sword thorn accurately pierced Kuan Lai's abdomen. Swoosh! The moment the male rhinoceros attacked, the entire auction field fell silent. All the demonic beasts stared at the sword on the tip of the male rhinoceros's nose, waiting for the result of the attack. Kuan Lai was shocked. He wanted to dodge, but how could he make it in time? Roar! Kuan Lai wailed. He waved his hooves with all his might, wanting to kill the male rhinoceros before the sword pierced him. Swoosh swoosh! With 2 soft sounds, the sharp blades on Kuan Lai's hooves pierced into the male rhinoceros's shoulders first. Puff! Almost at the same time, the male rhinoceros's sword pierced into Kuan Lai's abdomen mercilessly. 3 streams of blood gushed out like fountains. In the blink of an eye, the 3 tough sharp weapons were dyed red. The smell of blood quickly spread throughout the auction field. Good. The frenzied auction suddenly broke out in silence. The sound waves could almost overturn the roof of the entire auction hall. Only Yazi, who was on the roof of the hall, looked at all of this coldly with his fierce and cruel eyes. Puff puff. Just as the demonic beasts cheered, 2 more muffled sounds came from the auction field. At this moment, the demonic beasts were stunned to discover that the male rhinoceros's 2 hind hooves, which were previously hiding behind Kuan Lai's abdomen, suddenly flashed a cruel light and pierced into the male rhinoceros's head in a flash. The male rhinoceros's head was naturally incomparably hard. However, when sparks flew, the male rhinoceros only avoided its own vital parts. A long bloody scar appeared on its head. Roar! This time, it was the male rhinoceros's turn to scream. Its huge body suddenly retreated. At this moment, Xiaohua discovered that the male rhinoceros's hind hoof speed was not inferior to Kuan Lai's. In other words, everything the male rhinoceros did before was to confuse Kuan Lai. Although the 2 vicious beasts were fighting a battle of wits and courage, they were actually evenly matched. However, the moment they came into contact, both beasts were injured. On the male rhinoceros's back, there were 2 bloody holes that were bigger than fists gushing out blood. On the male rhinoceros's head, there were 2 bloody scars that were similarly bleeding. Within the bloodstains, the eerie white bones could be seen with the naked eye. Kuan Lai stood there. Although he didn't seem to have any abnormalities, his abdomen was dripping with blood like a small stream flowing happily. Roar! Roar! Several dozen wolves opened their mouths and roared towards the auction sky. All of the demonic beasts' eyes were blood red. A strange, tyrannical atmosphere instantly spread throughout the entire auction. Even the majority of the humans stood up from their seats and shouted crazily. Crazy! Beside Xiaohua, Fu Jiwen sighed slightly. This Yazi auction house is indeed formidable. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. First it was the beauty. Soon after, there was blood. Everyone and demonic beasts were dizzy from the rush of blood. When the bidding started, they became the male rhinoceros and Kuan Lai. In the end, only the Northern Sea Dragon Palace profited. As Xiaohua spoke, that Kuan Lai launched another attack. The male rhinoceros also calmly faced the battle. Those 2 large ears were actually sharp weapons. From time to time, they would land on Kuan Lai's body and slice off pieces of flesh. Kuan Lai was even more formidable. His 4 hooves danced as he stabbed again and again. Every time he stabbed, he would leave behind a bloody hole on the male rhinoceros's body. Although the male rhinoceros's skin was tough and thick, in merely the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the male rhinoceros's body was full of bloody holes. Moreover, although these bloody holes constantly flickered with faint star energy, they did not heal. Clearly, Kuan Lai's sharp blades were highly toxic. From the scene, it looked like Kuan Lai had the upper hand. The male rhinoceros did not counterattack much. However, the male rhinoceros's counterattack was extremely powerful. After stabbing into Kuan Lai's abdomen for the first time, the male rhinoceros's sword stabbed into other parts of Kuan Lai's body 5 times. Blood gushed out from Kuan Lai's body, and the entire auction house was covered in blood. Ew! Kuan Lai howled in grief. He suddenly broke away from the battle and ran towards the hole he previously ran out of. The male rhinoceros had obviously won. It roared and brandished its sword to show off. However, at this moment, the 4 walls of the auction house had already closed up. Where was the hole to be seen? Kuan Lai ran 1 round and appeared in front of the male rhinoceros again. While showing off, the male rhinoceros roared again. It was like a huge mountain as it advanced towards Kuan Lai. Seeing this, although Kuan Lai howled in grief, he still pounced over. Not only did he desperately open his mouth to bite the male rhinoceros's flesh, he even used the sharp blades on his 4 hooves to stab the male rhinoceros. The fight between the 2 demonic beasts was extremely cruel. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. After a while, there was not a single piece of intact flesh on the 2 demonic beasts' bodies. Even their bones were exposed. The 2 demonic beasts were even somewhat weak. However, they still fought for their survival. In the auction house, the cheers from the surroundings did not stop. Xiaohua could even hear the voices of a few humans beside him were somewhat hoarse. "Hey, hi, let's go!" Xiaohua stood up from his seat and whispered. It's fine if we don't participate in this auction. It was also at this moment. Good. There was another thunderous cheer. The male rhinoceros's sword stabbed deeply into Kuan Lai's abdomen again, and Kuan Lai accurately stabbed the sharp blades on his two hind hooves into the male rhinoceros's eyes. Ayo ayo. The male rhinoceros struggled like crazy and ran again. Kuan Lai's body clung to the male rhinoceros's body with all his strength, and his hind hooves stabbed into the male rhinoceros's brain. Blood flowed out, and a white substance also seeped out from Kuan Lai's hind hooves. In the end, the male rhinoceros fell to the ground like a mountain. Kuan Lai also fell to the ground of the auction house on the verge of death. Blood kept gushing out from his abdomen, forming a river of blood. Boom! There was a loud sound. Before the demonic beasts could rejoice, a huge wave of water fell from the center of the auction house and smashed into the two demonic beasts' bodies that were still breathing. The strength of the wave was so great that it instantly smashed the two demonic beasts into meat paste. Then, the wave of water rolled up a blood-colored spray and suddenly disappeared in mid-air. When everyone looked again, the entire auction house was as clean as before. The male rhinoceros's sword, the arc-shaped sharp blades on its ears, the sharp blades on Kuan Lai's hooves, and the sharp fangs on its four hooves lay there quietly. Everyone! At this moment the old tortoise's voice slowly sounded. These are the two items that my Yazi auction house is bidding for. These two items can only belong to the experts of my demonic beast clan, the victors of the future world. The starting price is 10,000 sea crystals. 11,000. 12,000. Without waiting for Xianxia to move his feet, the sound of bidding rose one after another. Moreover, all kinds of brilliance continuously flickered above the seats. Author's note: a good activity where meat pies fall from the sky. Cool phones are waiting for you. Click on the Chinese website's official account, add a friend on WeChat, add a public account, enter Dread, and participate immediately. Everyone has a prize. Immediately follow Dread's official account on WeChat. Chapter 39:21. Master. Fu Jiwen had already stood up, but at this time he said softly, "The auction has already started, let's wait and see." Xiaohua looked around, gave up the idea of leaving, and sat down. In just a moment, the items of the two vicious beasts had already reached 50,000 sea crystals, and the crowd of beasts was boiling with blood, as if they were going all out to bid. The Yazi auction house is too good at doing business. Xiaohua sighed again and whispered to Fu Jiwen, regardless of how much these two vicious beasts are worth, just the bloody battle just now has raised the value of these vicious beasts by a lot, and this old turtle directly said that these items can only belong to a vicious beast, and a vicious beast at that, and a vicious beast at that, which vicious beast wouldn't bid with all their might. This first auction will make the Yazi auction house earn a good start. Yes, watching the battle just now, the vicious beast's blood still hasn't subsided. Why would they care about sea crystals? I'm afraid that in their eyes, they only care about face and showing off in the future. Fu Jiwen nodded. The North Sea Dragon Palace used the sharp blade of their reputation to blind these vicious beasts' eyes. Since the first round of bidding didn't allow humans to participate, Xiaohua was happy to watch from the side. In the end, the two vicious beasts' remains were sold for 90,000 sea crystals, 9 times the original bid. However, Xiaohua didn't think so, and smiled. It's only 90,000 sea crystals. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could finish his words, he felt a bit embarrassed. This was because the old tortoise had waved his walking stick, and several items had fallen on top of Xiaohua's head. A cloaked demonic beast had taken out some sparkling and translucent sea crystals. They were completely different from the sea crystals that the general had taken out in the shop. Damn it! Xiaohua understood, and smiled bitterly. This old man understands. The sea crystals that the Yazi auction house is talking about are probably only top-quality sea crystals. A piece of top-quality ocean crystal is worth 2 or 3 pieces of top-quality primal stones. It's not worth it to exchange hundreds of thousands of top-quality primal stones for these two shitty things. Xiaohua felt that it wasn't worth it, but many of the Yao in the auction hall had envious looks in their eyes as they watched the Yao put everything into his cosmic bracelet. Thank you, fellow Immortal. The old turtle hesitated for a moment before using the demon language to address him as Immortal Friend. Even though the demon race and the sea race didn't address him this way. You've given this old man so much face, and also given my Yazi auction house so much face. I presume all of you are aware that every single fellow immortal that bids for the first item will obtain a voucher of discount from my Yazi auction. As for the amount of discount, it will depend on the fellow immortal's luck. Please come look for me after this auction. The voucher of discount will take effect after this auction. This certificate can be used in the auction hall or in all the properties of the North Sea Dragon Palace. Woo! Some exclamations sounding very regretful. Obviously, these were all first-time buyers of the Yazi auction house, so they didn't know about this. Hee hee, it seems that there are many first-time fellow immortals in my Yazi auction house. The old turtle said with a smile, I have to introduce myself again. My name is Shen Kong. This name sounds similar to the Buddhist name of the Arhat of the Buddhist sect, but I'm a genuine Yao. I have nothing to do with the Arhat of the human race. Of course, if my Yao race doesn't need any ocean relics in the future, I can consider abstaining from meat and chanting Buddhist scriptures. Boom! Some Yao began to roar with laughter, and the smell of blood in the auction hall gradually faded. Alright, the rules of my Yazi auction house are similar to those of other auction houses. Shen Kong began to slowly explain the rules of the auction house according to the practice of ordinary auction houses. Fortunately, there weren't many rules in the Yazi auction house, so he finished explaining a few of them. In the end, Shen Kong flicked his sleeve and said, Alright, after saying so much, my mouth is dry. Now, let's start the second batch of items. Following Shen Kong's words, more than 10 splashes appeared in the middle of the auction hall. Above each splash was a yin-yang bracelet, and next to each yin-yang bracelet were some items. Xiaohua focused his eyes and saw that these items were corals, precious pearls, Yao herbs, Yao fruits, Yao stones, weapons, armors and so on. Shen Kong raised his walking stick and pointed at the pearls, corals, and other items, saying, These items are produced in the waters under the jurisdiction of my North Sea Dragon Palace. They are quite old and can be considered precious. The yin-yang bracelets are used to store these items. Each yin-yang bracelet costs 100,000 sea crystals. Fellow immortals who are interested can bid, but these items can't be bought individually. If you want to buy them, you have to buy them in batches. After Shen Kong finished speaking, the entire auction hall fell silent. Although the pearls and corals were very precious, they were useless to the Yao clan. Only humans would bid for them. Seeing the awkward situation, Shen Kong smiled and said, Fellow immortals who want to bid for these items can rest assured. The Yazi auction house will guarantee that the fellow immortals who bid for these items will be sent to a safe place designated by the fellow immortals. If fellow immortals are willing, you can even leave before the auction ends. 100,000 sea crystals. As soon as Shen Kong finished speaking, someone immediately spoke up. That person's voice was rather weak. Clearly, his cultivation wasn't high. Does anyone else want to bid? Shen Kong smiled and said, Every bid is 1,000 sea crystals. Shen Kong asked a few times, but no one answered. Shen Kong shook his head helplessly and said, Fellow immortals of the human race are really smart. I presume this fellow immortal has already discussed with the other fellow immortals before coming to the auction? This old man knows that there are more than 100,000 sea crystals in this yin-yang bracelet, but there's nothing I can do. This yin-yang bracelet now belongs to this fellow immortal. As Shen Kong waved his walking stick, the yin-yang bracelet fell into the hands of a fellow immortal in the distance. Shen Kong then said, Fellow immortal of the human race, if you want to leave, you can stand up now. Once you've handed over the sea crystals, the Yazi auction house will escort you out. Alright, thank you fellow immortal Shen. The fellow immortal who took the yin-yang bracelet stood up and hastily left. Shen Kong glanced at the back of the fellow immortal, raised his walking stick, and said, Alright, the next item, the coral, will be 100,000 sea crystals. Not long after, the pearls, corals, armors, and other items were all bought. Xiaohua understood that it was just as Shen Kong said. They were all bought by humans, and they all chose to leave immediately. Xiaohua understood that these items of the sea race were extremely precious in the eyes of the mortals of the hidden immortal continent. Most of the bidders should be merchants of the mortal world. They would benefit from this. Of course, everyone knew the dangers involved. They didn't have the ability to protect themselves. Even if they had some bodyguards, they probably wouldn't be able to deal with the cultivators who coveted these items. They could only place their hopes on the credibility of the Yazi auction house. Next is the herbs picked in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. The starting price for each yin yang bracelet is 50,000 sea crystals. As soon as Xian Kong spoke, a voice filled with doubt sounded. Senior Xian, I have a question to ask. Is it possible? Oh, fellow Immortal, please go ahead. Xian Kong naturally wasn't afraid that someone would ask. He was afraid that the auction house would be quiet. These items are commonly seen in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. I usually don't even look at them. Why are they being sold for so many sea crystals? Hee, fellow Immortal, you don't know. Xian Kong said with a smile. The humans of the hidden Immortal continent are good at making elixirs. All herbs and spiritual fruits can be used as medicines. Most of the medicines that the monster race needs the most are made by the humans. These herbs from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm may also be part of the ingredients they need to make elixirs. Therefore, these herbs can also be sold for auction. Damn it, I see. The monster race was shocked. Then won't the humans make a fortune? These ordinary plants are worthless to begin with, but after passing through their hands, they can actually produce such precious medicinal pills. Yes, there's nothing we can do about it. Xian Kong shrugged his shoulder outside the turtle shell and said, We monster race don't understand these things, so we can only rely on the humans. That's why the North Sea Dragon Palace got these herbs from the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. On one hand, we can provide them with elixirs, and on the other hand, we can earn some sea crystals from them. Alas, Senior Xian, you've worked hard. The monster race sighed with emotion at the hardships of the North Sea Dragon Palace. However, he didn't understand. If these monster fruits and monster herbs were sold for a high price, then wouldn't the medicine made from these monster fruits and monster herbs be even more valuable? 50,000 sea crystals. A voice called out. 51,000 sea crystals. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and also called out. Fu Jiwen wasn't surprised by Xiao Hua's bid. After all, Xiao Hua had already said that he wanted to cure the old shrimp, so these monster herbs should be useful. Xiao Hua's bid made Xian Kong slightly surprised, and he unconsciously looked in Xiao Hua's direction. At the same time, the human who was the first to bid also stopped. Okay, 51,000 sea crystals. Xian Kong took the opportunity to ask, Fellow Immortal, do you have any other bids? 52,000. The man called out again. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and called out, 55,000. 56,000. The man didn't show any weakness, as if he was determined to get this monster herb. Xiao Hua pinched his chin and looked into the distance. He could almost guess who was bidding. Fellow Immortal Xian. Xiao Hua said, Can I take a look at this universe bracelet first? Of course you can. Xian Kong said nimbly. He raised his hand and the water under the universe bracelet rushed out, sending the universe bracelet to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua took the universe bracelet and scanned it with his divine sense. He then put the universe bracelet back on the water and said with a smile, I give up. Xian Kong nodded, then looked around and said, Is there any other fellow immortal who wants to bid? Master, why aren't you bidding? Fu Jiwen whispered. Xiao Hua laughed and said, There are a lot of things inside, but they are all very high-level demonic grasses. They might not be effective in treating the injuries of the old sea shrimps and the other sea race, so why would I bid for it? Chapter 39-22. Master, how do you know about these demonic herbs? And you also know that they are useless? Fu Jiwen was shocked. Could it be that you also know demonic arts? At this point, Fu Jiwen patted his forehead and smiled bitterly. Alas, look at this disciple's memory. Didn't you also teach demonic arts to Black Bear, White Lion, and Golden Condor? Master, is there anything in this world that you don't know? Give birth to children. Xiao Hua replied indifferently. Give birth. Fu Jiwen was shocked at first, and then an extremely strange expression appeared on his face. That burst of laughter made him choke. Xiao Hua also bid for the demonic fruits several times, but it was still the same human who bid for them. This time, Xiao Hua didn't even look at them and directly gave up. Firstly, he didn't want to have a dispute with a human because of these demonic fruits and let the monster race watch the fun. Secondly, He didn't want the North Sea Dragon Palace to earn more sea crystals. Finally, there were some stones of the Thousand Monster Sacred Realm. Of course, these were all materials for refining tools. Xiaohua already knew about them when he used his divine sense to scan the few stones outside the yin-yang bracelet. In the end, after a few sparse bids, including Xiaohua's, no one else bid, and this yin-yang bracelet was easily obtained by Xiaohua. After Xiaohua asked Xiankong how many top-grade primordial stones he should pay, he took out a small yin-yang pouch, put the primordial stones inside, and sent them into the stream of water. Then, he sent the yin-yang bracelet into the space. This round of bidding is over. Which fellow immortal wants to leave? Of course, it's the fellow immortal who has already bid for something. You can leave now. Xiankong waved his hand, and many streams of water fell down, ending this very boring round of bidding. To Xiankong's surprise, the other humans who had bid for something all chose to leave. Only Xiaohua sat there calmly, showing no signs of leaving. All right. Xiankong smiled and said, "Let the second round begin." As soon as his voice fell, a burst of music rang out. From the surrounding stone walls of the auction hall, a dozen or so shell girls flew out on waves. These shell girls covered their faces, revealing their graceful figures. Each of their jade-white hands held a plate condensed from green water. On the plate were jade bottles, square boxes, and even sandalwood cups. My fellow immortals, I was just talking about the medicinal pills of the human race. Now these are. Xiankong waved his walking stick and pointed at the shells of the shell girls. Then, pink demon characters appeared on the shells. 2 Revolution Soul Nourishing Pill, Soul Cleansing Pill, Detoxification Pill. The names of the medicinal pills appeared one after another. Every time a medicinal pill's name appeared, it would cause waves of exclamations. When the names of all the medicinal pills appeared, the dozen or so shell girls held the water plates and danced in the auction hall. It was as if they were showing off their dance and also letting the demons see the medicinal pills in their hands. These medicinal pills and medicines are all from the famous alchemists and pharmacists of the hidden immortal continent. I can't reveal their specific names. However, if the medicinal pills and medicines are ineffective, I, Yazi Auction Hall, will be responsible for all the consequences. Xiankong's words dispelled the doubts in the hearts of the demons. All the demons held their breaths. Their eyes were burning with passion as they quietly waited for Xiankong's bid. Xiankong didn't disappoint these demons. The amount of sea crystals he offered was frightening. However, no matter how many sea crystals there were, it didn't seem to be as important as illness and life. Bottles of medicinal pills were bid for by the demons at very high prices. Tisk. Xiaohua looked at the scene that was even crazier than the auction at Zhaixinglu and couldn't help but be speechless. The demon race's sea crystals are really easy to cheat. Master, this is really a good way to get rich. Fu Jiwen's eyes also lit up. This is simply faster than mining primeval stones in the Black Wind Ridge. It's almost like robbing. If our fortune gate can refine these medicinal pills, why would we need to worry about primeval stones in the future? Indeed, these medicinal pills, to be honest, they are really not that good. However, the demon race doesn't know how to refine pills. Xiaohua nodded. Disciple, when you return to the fortune gate, you must find a few disciples with talent in alchemy. If the fortune gate wants to develop, it won't be possible without a few methods to earn primeval stones. Yes, disciple understands. Disciple will definitely inform senior brother Xiong and the others when I return. Fu Jiwen hurriedly replied. After bidding for the medicinal pills and medicines, Xiankong looked at the gradually livening atmosphere with a smile and said, "The human race's medicinal pills and medicines are rare items. They are useful for our survival in the future. The next item to be auctioned is something useful for the cultivation of fellow immortals. Old Ghost Shen, hurry up, this old man can't wait any longer." A rather arrogant voice sounded from above. It was obviously a distinguished guest of the Yazi auction hall. Right away, right away. Xiankong didn't get angry and shouted, "You just need to prepare the sea crystals." As he spoke, a loud bugle horn sounded from the walls where the dozen or so shell girls had flown out. Then, hundreds of shrimp and crab soldiers clad in battle armor rushed out from the walls. These sea tribe members were all holding weapons in their hands. Hanging from these weapons was a pouch made of golden thread. There were actually things in those pouches. When Xiaohua saw the things in those pouches, his eyes unconsciously flashed with ruthlessness. Because the things in those pouches were dozens of nascent souls, dozens of gold cores, dozens of fist-sized relics, and hundreds of demonic cores. There were even a few jade bottles in those pouches. Inside those jade bottles, there were traces of green light. If he wasn't mistaken, those were some living souls. Those dozens of nascent souls had their eyes tightly closed. Xiaohua used his divine sense to scan them and knew that the primordial spirits inside the nascent souls had been wiped out. Only their spiritual shells were left. Kaka. This is what this old man likes the most. The arrogant voice said, and there was actually a hint of hunger in it. It was obviously a demonic beast that was used to devouring. Fellow immortals, according to the usual rules, starting from the demonic cores, each demonic core is 500,000 sea crystals. Xianxia smiled faintly and said. But before he could finish, another voice called out, 510,000. 520,000. 530,000. In just a short moment, the first demonic core was called for 620,000 sea crystals. At this time, the bidding finally began to calm down. Several powerful demonic beasts slowly increased the price. Xiaohua didn't pay attention to these bids. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the dozens of nascent souls. He was secretly thinking about how to bid. He had a lot of top-grade primordial stones in his space, but if he were to bid for all these nascent souls, it would be somewhat beyond his ability. However, if he didn't bid, not only would Xiaohua feel uncomfortable watching these nascent souls without primordial souls being devoured by the demonic beasts, but if these nascent souls were refined into scattered souls, they would be far more useful to Xiaohua than hundreds of thousands of top-grade primordial stones. The first demonic core was finally sold for 800,000 sea crystals. The prices of the following demonic cores varied, but they were all around 700,000 sea crystals. The hundreds of demonic cores brought the Yazi auction house over 100 million sea crystals. Xianxia smiled so widely that his small eyes were almost invisible. The Buddhist sect Saraira that followed shocked Xiaohua. Each Saraira was actually worth more than the demonic core, almost 1 million sea crystals. However, when he thought about how the mottled sea Saraira made the demonic beasts scramble for them, these authentic Buddhist light were very strong. These Saraira would be even more useful for the cultivation of the demonic beasts. Fellow immortals, let's start the bidding for the Taoist sect's nascent souls. Xianxia's tone was somewhat excited. Clearly, the harvest of the demonic cores and Saraira greatly exceeded his expectations. Xiaohua could also hear a trace of coldness in Xianxia's tone. In his eyes, these Taoist sect's nascent souls were nothing but items to be bid for. 400,000 sea crystals for each nascent soul. Regardless of size. Xianxia casually waved his hand, and many nascent souls flew up and landed in the air for the demonic beasts to see. It was as if these nascent souls were fruits. Looking at these nascent souls, Xiaohua's heart was pierced deeply. Nascent souls were different from golden cores, demonic cores, and Saraira. Nascent souls were in human form, and at this moment, they were imprisoned by demonic arts. The clothes that ordinary nascent souls transformed into were nowhere to be seen. They were naked in the golden silk. There were even a few female nascent souls among these dozen or so nascent souls. Perhaps in the eyes of the demonic beasts, regardless of gender, they were the same. It was just like how humans looked at bulls and cows. However, in Xiaohua's eyes, it didn't feel good. 2 million sea crystals. Xiaohua didn't even think about it and was about to bid. However, just as he spoke, a voice came from the side of the auction house in the distance at the same time as Xiaohua. 2 million sea crystals. This old man wants them all. Oh! Not only was Xianxia slightly stunned, but some of the demonic beasts who wanted to bid were also surprised. A wave of exclamations came from all over the auction house. These demonic beasts were very strange. Why was it that the first person to bid for nascent souls wasn't a demonic beast, but a human? Moreover, it was two humans. While Xianxia and the demonic beasts were in a daze, Xiaohua stroked his chin and thought to himself. Nascent souls were somewhat useful for the demonic beast's cultivation, but they were definitely not as useful as demonic cores. The price of 400,000 sea crystals also proved this point. Even if the demonic beasts who wanted to bid for nascent souls wanted to bid, they definitely wouldn't bid so much at once. Therefore, Xiaohua wanted to take advantage of the demonic beasts' inability to react and use a large number to scare them, then easily obtain these nascent souls. Unfortunately, the human cultivator on the other side obviously had the same plan as Xiaohua. His bid immediately destroyed Xiaohua's wishful thinking. However, Xiaohua was puzzled. Who was the other party? Why was he as interested in nascent souls as he was? After all, ordinary Taoist cultivators took nascent souls because they were interested in the primordial spirit within them. They could be used to refine magic treasures and array diagrams. The pure nascent soul's spiritual shell was not very useful. This fellow immortal suggestion is not bad. Xianxia pondered for a moment and nodded. The quality of these nascent souls is different. If we all bid at 400,000 sea crystals, I'm afraid many fellow immortals won't be willing. Why don't we just bid together? Old Turtle Xian. Some demonic beasts were unhappy and shouted, I just want to get a nascent soul to taste. If you do this, won't I be unable to satisfy my cravings? No, definitely not. Chapter 39-23. That's right. How can the rules of the auction be changed so easily? Some of the monster race and sea race who were interested in bidding for the nascent souls also began to clamor, causing the entire auction to become somewhat chaotic. Xianxia looked at the monster race indifferently. After a while, he casually waved the cane in his hand and said with a smile, The host of this auction is this old man. Everything this old man says, as long as it doesn't go against the rules of my auction, then my words will be the rules today. All right. A few of the noisy monster race looked at Xianxia's serious expression, and then looked at the 13 nascent souls that had just condensed their nascent souls. After weighing the pros and cons, they replied in a low voice. This immortal friend has bid for 2 million sea crystals. Are there any other immortal friends who want to bid? Xianxia looked in Xiaohua's direction and seemed to be hoping that Xiaohua would make a bid. Xiaohua didn't disappoint this old man and said without hesitation, 21 million sea crystals. 3 million. The other party didn't wait for Xiaohua's voice to fall and immediately bid. Xiaohua was helpless. The other party had already expressed their attitude and was even more determined to win than Xiaohua. Xiaohua rubbed his nose and was about to speak when Fu Jiwen said in a low voice, Master, what do we want these nascent souls for? If we want to spend origin stones on them, we might as well bid for the monster fruits earlier. Fu Jiwen knew that his master was kind. He reminded him like this because he was afraid that his master would be moved by these nascent souls and desperately bid for the nascent souls that he didn't have. Hee. Xiaohua naturally understood Fu Jiwen's meaning and said in a low voice, Master isn't that kind of person. Don't worry. Master has use for these nascent souls. Perhaps when you reach your cultivation level. Forget it. I'm afraid you won't be able to cultivate these secret techniques. Fu Jiwen majored in Confucian arts and cultivated Tao magic on the side. But he had the opportunity to use the 5 Qi's righteous thunder to temper his yuanying like Xiaohua. Xiaohua originally wanted to reveal some secrets to Fu Jiwen to encourage him. But when he thought about how Fu Jiwen's heavenly book was still sealed, he simply gave up on this idea. It wouldn't be too late to tell him when the conditions were right. 31 million sea crystals. Xiaohua ignored Fu Jiwen and bid. All right. Hearing Xiaohua's words, Fu Jiwen knew that his master was truly mysterious and unfathomable. Presumably, it was some kind of extraordinary secret technique. He could only mutter to himself and watch the show from the side. 5 million. The other party was rather impatient and directly called out a high price. Xiaohua leisurely sat on the chair and unhurriedly opened his mouth. 501 million. 8 million. The other party was straightforward and directly increased the price by 3 million. It seemed that he was not short of money. See. Xiaohua was stunned once again. He had seen people who didn't lack money, but he had never seen someone who didn't lack money like this. This was 3 million sea crystals, which was equivalent to nearly 7 million top-grade source stones. Although Xiaohua had moved away the source stone mine in the Black Wind Ridge, he could be considered a person who didn't care about source stones. However, This was the first time he had encountered such a strong opponent as a rich cultivator. This really made him feel ashamed and angry. Xiao Hua was stunned, yet Shen Kong was overjoyed instead. Never in his dreams had he imagined that a nascent soul stage cultivator that he didn't think highly of would actually be able to bid for such a high price. The group of monster race cultivators who didn't feel any pain in their backs began to clamor, pushing the atmosphere of the auction to a new height. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth. 801 million sea crystals. Boom! The entire auction seemed to explode as all the monster race cultivators exclaimed, but in an instant, all the monster race cultivators fell silent and waited for the other human to bid. Of course, these monster race cultivators weren't waiting for the human to bid, but to see how high the human would push the price. 10 million! The other party really didn't disappoint the monster race cultivators and threw out 2 million sea crystals in one go. Boom! Although the monster race cultivators wanted to suppress their excitement and wait for Xiao Hua to bid, they couldn't suppress their surprise at all. One by one, they stood up from their seats and looked at Xiao Hua and the other human. Whispers converged into a wave of sound that drowned out the previous silence. Shen Kong had a smile on his face and wasn't in a hurry to speak. 10 million sea crystals divided among the 13 nascent soul stage cultivators was nearly a million, more than double the previous 400,000. Moreover, Shen Kong was very clear in his heart. Although he didn't know what these two humans wanted the nascent soul stage cultivators for, he was sure that they wouldn't give it up so easily. Especially the one who had just bid. Hearing such a high bid, Xiao Hua calmed down instead. Just as he was about to bid again, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Xiao Hua suddenly quivered and a chill rose from the bottom of his heart, causing all the hairs on his body to stand on end. No, this person definitely isn't a Taoist cultivator. An inconceivable but very natural thought appeared in his mind. This person should be an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace. That's right, he really is an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace. He can only be an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace. The more Xiao Hua thought about it, the more he felt that it made sense. In order to collect enough nascent souls, this guy was able to set up the sun, moon, and star formations on Yaotai Mountain. He spent so much effort, but it was ruined by me and he only collected a few nascent souls. Now, these 10 nascent souls are only worth 10 million sea crystals. Isn't it much easier than before? Moreover, if he isn't an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace, how could he not put the sea crystals in his eyes? However, there is also something wrong. If he is an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace, he could have directly asked for these nascent souls from the North Sea Dragon Palace. Why would he come to the auction? This is also somewhat inconceivable. While Xiao Hua was pondering for a brief moment, the voices in the auction hall began to die down. Shen Kong raised his head and looked at Xiao Hua with his beady eyes, then said with a smile, I really did not expect that there would be two fellow immortals sitting in the outer seats. After today's auction, no matter which fellow immortal wins the bid, my Yanzi auction hall will give both fellow immortals a third-class certificate to express my gratitude. Then, after waiting for a moment, Shen Kong opened his mouth and said, That fellow immortal has bid 10 million sea crystals. Does this fellow immortal still want to bid? Since he knew that the other party might be an immortal emissary from the Immortal Palace, Xiao Hua understood that it was meaningless for him to raise the price above the sea crystals. If he wanted to bid for these 13 nascent souls, he could only find another way. But how could he find another way? Xiao Hua had countless spiritual herbs and magic treasures in his space, but the problem was that the North Sea Dragon Palace didn't lack them, and they also didn't want them. In the eyes of the demon race, spiritual herbs were no different from foxtail grass. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, Fellow Immortal Xian, this one wants to ask, are these nascent souls consigned by others in the Yanzi auction hall, or do they belong to the Yanzi auction hall? He, this fellow immortal often bids, and this is the first time you've come to my Yanzi auction hall. Shen Kong's attitude towards a big customer like Xiao Hua was very amiable, and he said with a smile, Everything in my Yanzi auction hall belongs to my Yanzi auction hall. My Yanzi auction hall is different from Star Picking Tower and Li Lai Trading Company. We never consign things for others. Oh, that's good. Xiao Hua smiled and took out a jade bottle from his space and said, This one has some things here. Would fellow immortal Shen take a look first? What does this fellow immortal mean? Xianxia stared blankly and looked at Xiaohua's jade bottle in confusion. He didn't want to make a move. Xiaohua didn't find it strange and just said with a smile, "Fellow immortal Xian will know after taking a look." Could it be that fellow immortal wants to use the things in this jade bottle to exchange for nascent souls? Xianxia thought for a moment and understood something, and then he said proudly, "My North Sea Dragon Palace." Xiaohua was slightly anxious. He knew that if Xianxia said too much, then even if he was interested in the soul-nourishing pills in the jade bottle in the end, it would probably be difficult for him to take back his words. This was the reason why Xiaohua interrupted Xianxia and said, "Fellow immortal Xian? Could it be that the Yanzi auction hall is so arrogant? You won't even take a look at the things in our hands?" Xiaohua's words naturally contained some Buddhist divine abilities, causing Xianxia to be slightly stunned, and then he said, "All right." As soon as he said, "All right," Xianxia felt that something was wrong. He knew that he'd fallen into Xiaohua's trap, and a trace of displeasure arose in his heart. "Hee. Fellow immortal Xian, please don't take offense," Xiaohua said with a smile. "If fellow immortal isn't satisfied after looking at it, then I'll turn around and leave, and I won't bid again." As soon as he heard that Xiaohua wouldn't bid again, Xianxia's displeasure disappeared. After all, Xiaohua's words were worth 2 million sea crystals. For the sake of 2 million sea crystals, what harm was there in taking a look? Xianxia stretched out the walking stick in his hand, and it expanded to several hundred feet in length and extended in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua bowed slightly to Xianxia and placed the jade bottle on top of the walking stick. Seeing the walking stick retract, Xiaohua confidently returned to his seat. The crowd of monsters once again began to whisper. "Ha!" Shock flashed through Xianxia's eyes when he saw the soul-nourishing pill within the jade bottle. He'd presided over many auctions, and he'd obtained many pills from the Taoism, but he'd never seen such an ugly pill. However, he saw pill veins on this unremarkable pill, and felt that it was an extremely high-quality pill. Moreover, since Xiaohua dared to take it out, how could it be an ordinary pill? "Fellow immortal, forgive this old man's poor eyesight, but this is..." Xianxia asked in surprise. Facing so many monsters, Xiaohua didn't dare to say it out loud. He transmitted his voice. "This is a batch of soul-nourishing pills that I obtained. Its effects are extremely good. This old man has tried it, and it's even better than ordinary 4 Revolutions soul-nourishing pills. If it weren't for the fact that I have limited primeval stones in my pouch today, I'm afraid I wouldn't take it out for an exchange." Hiss. Xianxia sucked in a breath of cold air, and asked in disbelief, "Fellow immortal, are you right? It's a 4 Revolutions soul-nourishing pill?" How could Xiaohua know how many revolutions it was? At this point, he couldn't care less. He nodded and said, "Indeed. Although this is the first time I've come to the Yazi auction house, how could I lie under the jurisdiction of the North Sea Dragon Palace?" Chapter 39-24. Soon after, many mermaids flew out from the center of the auction hall along with the waves, swaying above the crowd's heads. The light of the magical artifacts overflowed, and the mermaids' beautiful light also shone in all directions. The entire auction hall was filled with the sound of gulping. "Damn it!" a rude voice shouted. "Old tortoise, when are we bidding for the fish slaves?" "Hee. Fellow immortal. Haste makes waste. Let's do it step by step. As long as you come to my Yazi auction hall, your wish will definitely come true," Xianxia said with a faint smile. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the mermaids returned to Xianxia's side. Xianxia raised his hand and pointed at an imperial artifact. This imperial artifact is called the heaven-attacking imperial artifact. It was refined by a famous artificer from the Immortal Palace. The starting price is 1 million sea crystals. "Fellow immortal Xian." Xiaohua was the first to speak. "This heaven-attacking imperial artifact is just an imperial artifact. Why is the starting price so high? Let's not talk about the demonic herbs from before. They were only a few tens of thousands of sea crystals. The pills that came after were only a few 100,000 sea crystals. This heaven-attacking imperial artifact's starting price is so high. Isn't it a bit inappropriate?" Xianxia smiled. He naturally thought that Xiaohua wanted to raise the price of the soul-nourishing pill. Thus he replied, "Fellow immortal, you're wrong. Refining materials are everywhere, but refining great artificers are rare. Not to mention the great artificer from the Immortal Palace. This great artificer refined countless materials, spent a lot of time, and spent a lot of effort to refine this imperial artifact of such high quality. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that my dragon palace doesn't need imperial artifacts, this old man definitely wouldn't be bidding for this item. 1,000,000 sea crystals is definitely worth it. 1,100,000. As soon as Xianxia finished speaking, there were already Confucian cultivators who were impatient and started bidding. This was an imperial artificer from the Immortal Palace. How could they see it in an ordinary auction? Even if someone obtained it, they wouldn't dare to bid in public. Only the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and other special auctions would have such an item appear. 1,200,000. Xiaohua shouted without hesitation. Since Xiaohua had opened his mouth, he naturally wouldn't let go of the person who opposed him. He hurriedly said, 2,000,000. 2,100,000. Another person shouted. Xiaohua coldly smiled. 5,000,000. 3,000,000. The competition between the human race far exceeded that of the demon race. The competition between the three of them was much more intelligent than the competition between the hundreds of demon race. 3,200,000. Xiaohua indifferently called out. 300. Just as the other person called out 300, Xiaohua's opponent immediately countered, 4,000,000. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, the other person increased the price once again. In just a few moments, the price of this sky attack had reached 7,000,000 sea crystals. Facing such a high price, the other person hesitated for a moment and didn't say anything. Xiaohua touched his nose and smiled. Fellow immortal, it's time for you and me to decide on this imperial equipment. Like I said before, this old man will increase the price by 1,000,000. If you increase the price, this old man will be yours. This old man will fulfill your wish. At this moment, that person had almost figured out Xiaohua's tricks. He really didn't believe that Xiaohua would give up on this imperial artifact from the Immortal Palace. Thus that person coldly smiled and said, 8,000,000 sea crystals. See. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to be a bit surprised. After pausing for a moment, he asked tentatively, This immortal friend, this old man wants to ask you. You used 8,000,000 sea crystals to bid for this sky attack. Do you still want to bid for those yuanying? Ha ha ha. Without waiting for that person to speak, all the demon race in the auction hall laughed. They deeply felt the cunning of the human race during the auction. They really didn't expect that Xiaohua's bid was actually to consume this human sea crystals. Xiaohua's goal was still those yuanying. You don't need to worry about this old man's matters. That person said indifferently. You just need to take care of your own origin stones. All right. Xiaohua slightly shook his head and said, This old man will keep his word. This item belongs to immortal friend. Xiaohua's words almost choked the other party to death. This was the Immortal Palace's imperial artifact that all Confucian cultivators coveted. 8,000,000 sea crystals was admittedly a bit high, but it was definitely within the acceptable range of the Confucian cultivator who used the sky attack. If this wasn't the Yazi auction hall, and if it wasn't for the fact that there weren't many Confucian cultivators here, that person was almost certain that the price of the sky attack would be even higher. However, this Confucian cultivator really didn't expect that Xiaohua would put it down so easily. It was just like what he said just now. He was a person who kept his word. Pay. That person secretly spat in his heart. He really wanted to crush Xiaohua to death in his hands. 8,000,000 sea crystals. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? Xianxia's heart was already blooming with joy as he loudly shouted. When no one answered, Xianxia didn't hesitate in the slightest to wave his walking stick. The mermaid descended before that person, and then he very elegantly presented Si Tianyu to that person. After that person took out a cosmos pouch to exchange for Si Tianyu, the mermaid returned, and Xiaohua immediately cried out. Fellow Taoist Xian, in my opinion, there's probably no need to test anything now, right? This old man will use sea crystals to bid for the nascent soul. You. That person still hadn't put away the sky attack and pointed in Xiaohua's direction. He was so angry that his voice was trembling. Fortunately, Shen Kong indifferently replied, "Since Immortal Friend has already given up on sea crystals to bid for the nascent soul, then we can only not use sea crystals. Immortal Friend, please wait for a moment." "All right." Xiao Hua's tone was extremely helpless. There was both the joy of victory and the reluctance to pay. The next few imperial tools were of good quality, but Xiao Hua didn't bid and that person naturally didn't say anything. Therefore, the final price of these imperial tools was only about 2 million sea crystals, far less than the sky attack. After the imperial tools, it was naturally the Taoist magic treasures. No one bid for the first few magic treasures, but when it came to the last pagoda-like magic treasure, Xiao Hua suddenly opened his mouth. However, the price wasn't high, only 500,000 sea crystals. When Xiao Hua opened his mouth, all the beasts were silent. They didn't dare to look at Xiao Hua and directly stared at the person opposing Xiao Hua. 600,000. Under the gaze of all the beasts, that person didn't hesitate to bid. 700,000. 800,000. Xiao Hua called out 1 million sea crystals in a short while, so that person hesitated again. He didn't know whether Xiao Hua was a Confucian cultivator or a Taoist cultivator. However, his hesitation only lasted for a moment. He seemed to have understood something. Xiao Hua bid for the nascent soul, gave up on the imperial tools, and now bid for magic treasures. The possibility of him being a Taoist cultivator was quite high. Of course, Confucian cultivators also had secret techniques that could use the nascent soul. Xiao Hua could also be a Confucian cultivator. That person thought for a moment and probed. 2 million sea crystals. Boom. The crowd of beasts clamored again. Today's Yazi auction house was really a one-man show between two humans. The other beasts all became spectators. On the other hand, Shen Kong curled his lips and complained in his heart about why Xiao Hua didn't open his mouth earlier. 2 million sea crystals, fellow immortals. Is there anyone else bidding? Shen Kong began to squeeze Xiao Hua. 2,100,000. 3 million. 3,100,000. 4 million. When it was Xiao Hua's turn, Xiao Hua smacked his lips and smiled. This Taoist magic treasure isn't worth so many sea crystals. This old man also doesn't want to bid more. If fellow immortals are interested, feel free to bid more. As long as fellow immortals bid more, this old man will definitely help you. Bid more, bid more. Seeing Xiao Hua's old trick, that person sneered. Before he could open his mouth, the crowd of beasts cheered him on. Humph, this old man doesn't believe it. That person definitely saw through Xiao Hua's trick, and was certain that Xiao Hua was a Taoist cultivator. He coldly snorted and said, 5 million sea crystals. That's not right, that's not right. Xiao Hua curiously said, Fellow immortal, do you have that many sea crystals? You must not be angry. What if you want to use sea crystals to bid for the nascent soul? Wouldn't you not be able to take it out? This old man is willing. That person didn't lack sea crystals and coldly said, Fellow immortal, if you have the ability, then use other methods to bid for the sea crystals. This old man doesn't believe that this old man can't beat you. All right. This old man admires you. This magic treasure is yours. Xiao Hua helplessly conceded. That person was once again in a predicament. He was really confused. He couldn't figure out Xiao Hua's identity. He had already seen this magic treasure. It was definitely a top-grade item used by Taoist cultivators of the upper 4th grade and lower 5th grade. If Xiao Hua was a Taoist cultivator and had tens of millions of top-grade origin stones in his bag, he definitely wouldn't let go of this magic treasure. Moreover, Xiao Hua didn't bid for the previous few magic treasures. Wasn't it because he was thinking about this last magic treasure? How could Xiao Hua give up like this? However, reality was cruel. Xiao Hua really retreated. That magic treasure that was almost useless to him was really delivered to him by the alluring mermaid. He helplessly took out his Chenkuan bag and handed over the sea crystals again. The next items to bid were naturally Buddhist treasures. Although there weren't many Buddhist treasures, the quality was really good. Moreover, Buddhist treasures were also Buddhist treasures. For the monster race, they had some use like relics, so the bidding was very intense. That person was constantly paying attention to Xiao Hua, And Xiaohua also didn't stand up to bid. When it was the last Buddhist treasure, Xiankong said, "This Buddhist treasure is the reincarnation drum. It is said that it was refined from the trunk of the Bodhi tree where Mahavairocana revered Buddha meditated when he became a Buddha. It contains the Buddhist light and karma of the mortal world when Mahavairocana revered Buddha became a Buddha. As for its specific power, this old man also doesn't know." 4. 1,000,000. Once they heard that it was the Buddhist light of Mahavairocana revered Buddha, all the monster race were happy. Buddhism was about delivering all living beings from suffering. That Buddhist light could be used by both monster race and human race. Of course, the monster race who wanted a Buddhist treasure wouldn't let it go. However, all the monster race also knew that the so-called Buddhist treasure of Mahavairocana revered Buddha was just a gimmick. If that was really the case, why would the North Sea Dragon Palace take it out to bid? Chapter 39-25. Xiankong listened to Xiaohua's words and nodded slightly. After all, alchemy wasn't the North Sea Dragon Palace's strong point. Most of the pills circulating around the North Sea were First Revolution soul-nourishing pills, which were refined using the relics of First Revolution Buddhas. The Second Revolution soul-nourishing pills they just bid on were refined using the relics of Second Revolution Buddhas. Of course, not only were the quality of the First Revolution and Second Revolution completely different, but the same Second Revolution was also related to the cultivation level of the Buddhas during each reincarnation. The Second Revolution soul-nourishing pills that the North Sea Dragon Palace bid on definitely wouldn't be particularly good. As for the Third Revolution soul-nourishing pills, it wasn't that the North Sea Dragon Palace didn't have them, but they were very few in number. This was because the Buddhas who could cultivate to the Third Revolution were all very powerful. How could they casually let others take away their relics? Moreover, even if the North Sea Dragon Palace obtained the relics of the Buddhas of the Third Revolution Buddhas, the negative karma within was far from something that the monster race could refine. Therefore, there was no need to mention the Fourth Revolution soul-nourishing pills. That was purely a legendary item. Xiaohua suddenly said that he had a batch of pills comparable to the Fourth Revolution soul-nourishing pills, and not just one. How could Xiankong not be shocked? Fellow immortals. Xiankong made up his mind and said, "These Taoist nascent soul cultivators will stop bidding for the time being." Before Xiankong could finish speaking, the human cultivator who bid on Xiaohua was unhappy and sneered, "Xiankong, is this how the North Sea Dragon Palace does things? Didn't you agree to use sea crystals to bid? How could someone take out a jade bottle and force you to change the rules?" Xiankong frowned slightly. Although he was unhappy, he still smiled and said, "This old man also said before that this old man will make the rules of this auction. Moreover, there are many unexpected things in this auction. Fellow Immortal, this is nothing. If Fellow Immortal feels that it's inappropriate, you can go to Profit Trading Company and Star Picking Tower to bid. They are all humans, so they should know what humans are thinking." The man hesitated for a moment and nodded. "All right, this old man can only follow the host's wishes. However, this old man wants to see what price these nascent soul cultivators will bid for." Fellow Immortal, just wait and see. Xiankong didn't waste his breath and said loudly, "Fellow Immortals, the bidding for this batch of nascent souls can be delayed for a moment. We'll bid after I confirm something." All right. The group of demon race beings were also elated. After all, there was a good show to watch. Thus, they didn't mind if things got out of hand. Xiaohua laughed bitterly. Xiankong obviously intends to check the authenticity of this soul-nurturing pill, and he even intends to check the effects of the soul-nurturing pill. But Xiankong didn't discuss it with me at all, and the overbearingness of the Yazi auction square is obvious from this. However, thinking about how Yazi wanted to check the effects of this soul-nurturing pill, Xiaohua felt anxious in his heart. After all, he didn't know what the Four Revolutions soul-nurturing pill looked like. Xiankong called the shell girl over and passed the jade bottle to her. Then, he ordered the shrimp soldiers and crab generals to leave. After that, the auction hall changed again. Huge images of ships flashed in the auction hall. Xiaohua understood that Yazi Auction Square had begun to sell ships. The sea race naturally didn't need ships, but the demon race of Thousand Demons Sacred Realm and the human race of Hidden Immortal Continent couldn't do without ships if they wanted to travel to the North Sea. Just like in Hidden Immortal Continent, although cultivators could fly, flying boats, flying carriages, and flying demon beasts were equally important. Just like the Mahis clan and Gongshu clan, the ships built by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas were also the best among all the ships. In particular, the ships built by the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had the mark of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Ordinary sea beasts didn't dare to make things too difficult for them when they galloped in the sea. Moreover, the patrolling soldiers of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas also had some preferential treatment. Therefore, many human race beings and demon race beings were willing to spend a lot of money to bid for the ships of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Xianxia pushed the images of the ships in front of him one by one and began to bid. The price of this ship was not the slightest bit cheaper than the previous demon core. However, looking at the crowd of demon race beings rushing like ducks, Xiaohua's heart was moved, and he opened his mouth to bid. Sure enough, as Xiaohua expected, once he opened his mouth, the immortal emissary who was suspected to be from the Immortal Palace immediately bid. Every time he bid, his price would always be higher than Xiaohua's. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed in his heart. This was clearly a troublemaker. Moreover, this immortal emissary had countless primordial stones in his pouch. If he wanted to bid for something in the future, it would be even more difficult. However, Xiaohua was not inexperienced in facing this kind of trouble. He slowly increased the price, bit by bit. In the end, he actually increased the price of the ship to a level that even the demon race beings were shocked. All the demon race beings shut their mouths, waiting to see how the two would end this. This old man bid 6,300,000 sea crystals for this ship. Xiaohua said with a smile, "If this immortal friend really wants it, then add a bit more. This old man won't lower himself to the same level as others. Don't you even know the basic etiquette of Confucian cultivators? You're the one who doesn't know etiquette." That person was obviously so angry that he jumped up and shouted, "I bid 6,310,000 sea crystals. This old man means what he says. A gentleman doesn't take what others like. This ship is yours." Xiaohua very indifferently flicked his sleeves and replied casually, You. That person obviously didn't expect Xiaohua to really retreat. He shouted a few times helplessly. However, when the demon race beings saw the internal strife of the human race beings, they all cheered and watched the show. Xianxia also laughed in the distance. After all, with such an episode happening, the atmosphere of the entire auction house became even better. Xiaohua didn't bid for the following ships. The demon race beings and the human race beings already understood that Xiaohua didn't plan to bid for the ship. After bidding for the ship, it was the materials to build the ship. Xiaohua heard that the iron palm wood was among them. However, what surprised Xiaohua was that in addition to the iron palm wood, many of the materials to build the ship could be used to build the thunderboat. Xiaohua almost didn't even think about it and started bidding. As soon as Xiaohua opened his mouth, Xianxia laughed. Other demon race beings might not care, but Xianxia knew that Xiaohua had already bid for a cosmos ring containing refining materials. The materials inside that cosmos ring were completely different from the materials used to build the ship. Since Xiaohua liked the previous materials, he might not care about the current ones. Now that Xiaohua started bidding again, it was obvious that he wanted to provoke the other human race being. Sure enough, following the laughter of the demon race beings, the human race cultivator also started to take it seriously. Even when the two were bidding, a few demon race beings also took the opportunity to add a few words, as if they were joining in the fun. After a few rounds of bidding, Xiaohua seemed to have some misgivings. After thinking for a bit, he said, "Fellow Immortal, please. Just like before, this old man has to tell you that this is the last time this old man will bid. If you like it, you can increase the price. This old man is a gentleman and will only do things that help others achieve their goals." This Xiaohua's words made the human race cultivator hesitate. He had just been cheated by Xiaohua. This time, he originally wanted to make a comeback, but the price of the sea crystals clearly wasn't enough to satisfy him. If Xiaohua wanted to bid for these materials, he shouldn't have stopped at this time. However, if Xiaohua didn't want to bid for these materials, Xiaohua shouldn't have said anything. The human race cultivator thought for a moment and raised his hand to bid again. However, just as he opened his mouth, he was suddenly startled. At this crucial moment, the human race cultivator suddenly remembered the first thing Xiaohua bid for. Like Xianxia, the human race cultivator also thought of the cosmos ring that Xiaohua bid for. However, His thoughts were different from Xian Kong's. Hee, it seems that this guy wants to build a ship? In other words, the ship he bid for just now wasn't necessarily fake. It's just that I obstructed him and he didn't succeed. Perhaps he wants to build a ship to go out to sea, or perhaps he wants to sell it. How can this ship be built with the strength of a single person? It's hard for me to find this guy's origin, but if it's someone who can build a ship, there really aren't many in the hidden immortal continent. As long as he really wants to bid for the materials of the ship, I will naturally know his origin. Even if he doesn't want to build a ship to go out to sea, but wants to sell it, who can build a ship that can compare with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? What's the value of the ship he builds? After he finished thinking, the human race cultivator smiled and said, "Since it's like this, a gentleman doesn't snatch what others like. I'll give this thing to fellow immortal." Seeing the human race cultivator raise his hand, Xiao Hua's heart thumped. He cursed inwardly. However, after hearing the human race cultivator's words, Xiao Hua was very happy. However, he pretended to jump up and shouted, "What? You really don't want to bid? You won't regret it?" Ha ha ha. All the demon race cultivators laughed loudly. It was all because Xiao Hua tried to steal a chicken but ended up losing the rice used to lure it. He was teased by another human. Only the human race cultivator sneered and said, "I've already been fooled once, how can I be fooled again?" "All right." Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He said helplessly, These materials, I want them." Xian Kong sent the materials over with a smile. Xiao Hua bitterly took the corresponding origin stones and placed them on the water pillar. He sat down on the chair somewhat dejectedly. Others naturally couldn't see Xiao Hua's appearance, but they could still hear Xiao Hua's voice. That voice of regret was also very obvious. "Humph, keep pretending." The human race cultivator sneered. After a few more rounds of bidding, Xiao Hua also opened his mouth. He didn't relax, and the human race cultivator followed suit. However, Xiao Hua didn't bid too much, and the human race cultivator also stopped when they were ahead. The two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding. They only made use of the gaps in the demon race's bidding, and neither of them revealed any flaws. After bidding for the materials, Xian Kong clapped his hands, and all the lights and shadows disappeared. Then, dozens of beautiful women dressed in light muslin swam out from the walls. These beauties all had the body of a human and the tail of a fish. Their pure white breasts were covered by palm-sized shells. That touch of darkness was reflected in the pure white curves, and it really attracted the gazes of countless male demon race cultivators. "Thank you for your support, fellow immortals." A cunning light appeared in Xian Kong's eyes. He chuckled and said, "Right now, we're bidding for the magic treasures used by Taoist cultivators, the imperial artifacts used by Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist artifacts used by arhats of the Buddhist sects, and the demonic artifacts used by demon experts. Ladies and gentlemen, please take a look at the quality of these magic tools first. After that, this old man will begin to bid for them one by one." Chapter 39-26. In just a moment, the price of the samsara drum had reached 5.7 million, which was similar to the price of the Buddhist treasure from before. At this time, the demon race was already exhausted. Only 2 or 3 scattered bids could be heard from above. 6 million. Xiao Hua suddenly opened his mouth. All the demon race's spirits were shaken, and they almost reflexively looked in another direction. 1 million. This time that person learned his lesson. He no longer increased the price by 1 million, but only by 100,000. When these two humans opened their mouths, the other demon race knew that they had no chance, so they simply began to watch the show. 2 million. Xiao Hua casually said. 3 million. 4 million. 5 million. The two people increased the price bit by bit. It was somewhat different from before. As that person increased the price, he muttered in his heart. He couldn't figure out whether Xiao Hua wanted this Buddhist treasure or was provoking him again. 4 million. Xiao Hua shouted without hesitation. Could it be that this guy is a Buddhist monk? This seems impossible. That person looked at Xiao Hua's unclear face and guessed with his head lowered. However, Xian Kong didn't miss the opportunity to shout, 7. 4 million. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? 8 million. That person hurriedly said. However, just as he opened his mouth, he regretted it. This time, he increased the price a bit too much. He was afraid that he would be tricked by Xiao Hua again. Sure enough, Xiao Hua smacked his lips again. This soft sound passed into that person's ears. That person's heart slightly trembled, and he felt somewhat cold. He felt that he had been tricked again. Since we're here, it's time for us to decide the winner. Fellow Immortal, this old man bids 1 million. If you increase the price again, this Buddhist treasure will be yours. Xiao Hua said as usual, this old man has always been the one to help others achieve their goal. Good. That person immediately relaxed and shouted. Just as he was about to give up, he was suddenly shocked. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiao Hua. He hurriedly said, Good, then this old man bids 9 million. If you want to help others achieve their goal, then give up. Boom! The crowd of demon race once again exploded. Motherfucker! Is this guy crazy? How many times have you been fooled? Why are you still being fooled? This guy isn't sick, he's just brainless. This bastard isn't brainless. His brain has been damaged by his anger. You're wrong. This fellow's brain isn't damaged. He was drugged by old Xian. Ah! With old Xian's looks, how could he drug him? I heard humans have different hobbies. Maybe he likes old tortoise? All kinds of discussions could be heard. Although that person's face couldn't be seen clearly, a pair of blood-red eyes were staring straight at Xiao Hua, like a gambler who had lost a bet. Just when the group of demons thought that Xiao Hua would not bid anymore, Xiao Hua actually opened his mouth. Sigh, as the saying goes, once and twice, but not thrice. This old man has deceived fellow Immortal twice before, causing fellow Immortal to take out so many sea crystals for nothing. This old man is truly apologetic. There is a saying in the ancient times, there is nothing greater than acknowledging one's mistakes and correcting them. This time, this old man will not deceive you again. 10 million sea crystals. PFFF. When Xiao Hua's words fell into that person's ears, that person almost spat out blood. Xiao Hua had boasted many times that he was a person who helped others achieve their goals, but it turned out that those things were not what he wanted. Now that he saw what he wanted, he began to go back on his words. Moreover, he was so blatantly and righteously remorseful. How could that person not be angered to death? Most of the demons couldn't react to the human's words. They still stared blankly at Xiao Hua, not understanding the meaning of Xiao Hua's words. However, some of the demons had already woken up, especially Xian Kong. He laughed out loud, but then he realized that it was inappropriate and hurriedly said, This fellow Immortal has bid 10 million sea crystals. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? 11 million. That person clenched his teeth and shouted. The bidding finally returned to its original trajectory. 11,100,000. Fellow Immortal, if you raise it again, this old man won't play with you anymore. 12 million. That person didn't care about Xiao Hua's threat and said again. Fellow Immortal, can't you just bid properly? Xiao Hua stood up and said, 12,100,000. If you raise it again, this old man really won't play. 13 million. That person seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. Xiao Hua didn't say anything. The entire auction house was dead silent. Even the mermaids were staring at Xiao Hua with wide eyes. Xian Kong didn't urge him and quietly waited for Xiao Hua to speak. After a while, Xiao Hua opened his mouth and said, Fellow Immortal, this Buddhist treasure went from 4 million to 13 million. You made this old man spend too many sea crystals. This old man swears to Namo Maitreya Buddha that this will be the last time this old man bids. If fellow Immortal raises the price again, this old man will definitely help you achieve your goal. 13,100,000. Good. The crowd of monsters understood and cheered loudly. There were even some monsters who didn't mind blowing things up and shouted, Raise the price, help you achieve your goal, help you achieve your goal. That person's face was as still as water. Naturally, he couldn't tell the true meaning of Xiao Hua's oath to Namo Maitreya Buddha, but he could tell that Xiao Hua was forced into a dead end. Moreover, when bidding for the nascent soul, Xiao Hua had replaced the sea crystals with a jade bottle in advance, which let him know that 13 million sea crystals was really Xiao Hua's limit. It would be unwise for him to increase the price any further. Therefore that person smiled and said, "Since fellow immortal has the virtue of helping others achieve their goal, why can't this one follow suit? This item belongs to fellow immortal." AI. Fellow immortal Xian. Xiao Hua complained. "This time, your North Sea Dragon Palace really made a fortune. You let me win, you let me win. This is all thanks to fellow immortal's support." Xian Kong couldn't stop smiling. Even he didn't expect that today's auction would be so exciting. Moreover, this was under the condition that the group of nascent soul cultivators didn't win the bid. However, this one has a presumptuous request. Xiao Hua said again. "Can this one bid for the nascent soul?" "Fellow immortal, I'm sorry." Xian Kong immediately understood Xiao Hua's meaning and immediately interrupted him. Fellow immortal could have mentioned it before the auction ended, but now that the auction has ended, forgive this old man for not being able to change his mind. Fellow immortal, please take out enough origin stones. All right. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, but still gave enough origin stones to the mermaid. However, when he took the Buddhist treasure, the reincarnation drum, the corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer. When the mermaid brought this Buddhist treasure over, he had already released a strand of Buddhist awareness to investigate it. This thing's appearance was that of a Buddhist treasure with Buddhist light, but in fact, it wasn't a Buddhist treasure at all. Under his heaven's eye, Xiao Hua discovered that there were traces of green patterns inside the Buddhist treasure. When he used his soul awareness to investigate, Xiao Hua was shocked to discover that this was a strange soul tool. It was also because of this soul tool that the North Sea Dragon Palace treated it as a Buddhist treasure. 13 million sea crystals in exchange for a soul tool. In Xiao Hua's eyes, it was absolutely worth it. Next was the main event of the auction, the demonic treasure. Xiao Hua naturally wouldn't get involved with these monsters. Today, the monster race was definitely Xiao Hua's friendly neighbor. If it weren't for these monsters' clamor and instigation, if there weren't these monsters shouting from the side, the person bidding with Xiao Hua might not have fallen into Xiao Hua's trap again and again. Sometimes, it wasn't that there weren't any smart people in this world, but that no one was stupid. The so-called times create bears was perhaps the same as today's situation. Xiao Hua seemed to be meditating with his eyes closed. His mind had already entered the space. After all, this was an item exchanged for tens of millions of top-grade origin stones. How could Xiao Hua not care? In particular, this soul tool was the item that Xiao Hua had spent the most money on in history. Looking at Xiao Hua's previous auction history, when he obtained a good item, he had never been so serious about bidding like today. If Xiao Hua really made a mistake, Xiao Hua would want to cry. Xiao Hua took out the soul tool. It was very similar to the one used by the Buddhist sect's law protector Heavenly King in the blood pool of gods and demons. However, this will lack the same thin killing weapon. On the wheel, there was a pattern of 6 axes engraved on it. Xiao Hua was very familiar with this pattern. He saw that the innermost axes of the wheel were engraved with the sun and moon revolving around the summit of Mount Meru. On the top of the axes, there was a palace. It was clean, bright, and magnificent. In the Buddhist light, there was a celestial sitting around the mountain. Their faces were filled with peace and benevolence. This was one of the Buddhist sect's 6 axes, the heavenly Tao. Next to the heavenly Tao's axes were engraved with 4 people wearing crowns and robes. They were standing while holding an object. Under the feet of these 4 people, there were mountains, rivers, and all kinds of people clearly visible. This was one of the Buddhist sect's 6 axes, the Tao of Heaven. Next to the Tao of Heaven's axes were engraved with a 3-headed, 6-armed figure holding various kinds of weapons. This figure was like a human but not a human, like a god but not a god. Under this figure, there was a monstrous wave of blood, boundless slaughter everywhere. This was one of the Buddhist sect's 6 axes, the Azura Path. Next to the Azura Path's axes were engraved with the pitch-black gate of hell. A horse-faced jailer was about to throw a sinner into a pot of boiling oil. In addition to the horse-faced jailer and the frying pan, there were 18 layers of hell, where all the sufferings gathered. It was the hell path of the Buddhist sect's 6 paths. In the axle of the hell path, there was an engraving of a hungry ghost holding a person and biting the person's head. The person's head was burned by fierce fire and was about to be burned to ashes. It was the hungry ghost path of the Buddhist sect's 6 paths. And in the outermost axle of the wheel, there was an engraving of a lion, an ox, and a horse that were being driven by people and eating each other. Under these eye-catching diagrams, there were many animals either biting, paralyzed, or dying. It was the animal path of the Buddhist sect's 6 paths. Well, it really looks like the Buddhist sect's 6 paths of reincarnation. Jade Archive Xiaohua's eyes flashed with starlight, as if he could see the inside of the wheel. He smiled and said, "Unfortunately, the Buddhist sect's 6 paths of reincarnation is not so simple. The 6 paths should be intertwined with each other and have their own reincarnation. I'm afraid that when the North Sea Dragon Palace saw the appearance of this Buddhist artifact, they would understand that the Buddhist artifact's 6 paths of reincarnation diagram is known but not the reason. It's impossible for it to be contaminated with the Bodhi Buddha's light of Mahavairocana world venerable, who became a Buddha." Chapter 39:27. Xiao Hua rotated the wheel with his finger. As the wheel rotated, a faint Buddhist light was emitted from it. At the same time, a faint sound of chanting could be heard. It was even more Buddhist than an ordinary Buddhist instrument. Xiao Hua looked at the Buddhist instrument and secretly laughed. "I have already succeeded in soul cultivation, but I don't have any suitable soul instrument or soul technique to use. If these tens of millions of top-grade primordial stones can be exchanged for a soul instrument that can kill people, that would be great. However, since it's a soul instrument, it should still be wielded by a soul cultivator friend." After saying that, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and he was already outside the mysterious cloud. At this time, the mysterious cloud was different from the previous one. Although the previous mysterious cloud had begun to condense and the cloud threads began to stabilize, in the end, it didn't take shape. Last time, under the attack of the Hell Judge's soul chain, it even showed signs of collapse. But at this time, the mysterious cloud could no longer be called a cloud. The whole cloud had completely condensed, and the whole body was sparkling and translucent. However, within this sparkling and translucent cloud, there were layers of cloud-shaped crystals in a scattered state. The heavenly patterns and earth deeds that were previously engraved outside the mysterious cloud had deeply integrated into the crystal. Moreover, where Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the crystal of the mysterious cloud, there was a colorful brilliance outside the crystal like a small world. He almost felt like he couldn't take his eyes away from it. The soul cultivation realm is unpredictable. It's just the wizard realm, and the mysterious cloud has such changes. Even I can't see through it. If it's cultivated to the extreme, what will it be like? Xiao Hua sighed and stepped on the mysterious cloud. Kacha! A dense layer of 3 corpses in thunder was produced from the surface of the crystal like a violent storm. Xiao Hua didn't see how the 3 corpses in thunder moved. When the 3 corpses in thunder fell 3 inches away from Xiao Hua, it turned into a circle of whirlpools. In this whirlpool, a cloud-shaped passage was born. "Haha, fellow Taoist has come? Please." Soul cultivator Xiao Hua's cheerful voice rang out from the passage. Jade Archive Xiao Hua looked up at the mysterious crystal cloud, which seemed to contain heavenly might, and the 3 corpses in lightning that had disappeared. In his heart, he knew that this was the mysterious cloud's own defense. It wasn't that it had some sort of divine ability to stop the attack, but rather that it had voluntarily retracted the attack because it shared the same origin as Xiao Hua. "Xiao Hua, quickly come and take a look." Little White Dragon urged from within the passage. "Hee, all right." Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded and stepped into the passage. Just like the teleportation passage, Jade Archive Xiao Hua appeared amidst the billowing dark clouds. Roar! A dragon's roar could be heard from the sea. The little white dragon's body, which was several thousand feet long, soared into the sky. The dragon's body was covered with blood vessels, and it was no longer in the form of a translucent soul. Jade Archive Xiao Hua looked at the blue sea and saw that the tens of millions of soul strands had now turned into liquid. These liquid soul strands were filled with the water of the yellow springs, and the entire blue sea was mixed with countless blood-red strands. These strands of blood-red strands looked like fish swimming in the blue waves. Looking at the sky above the soul formation sky, the sorcerer's codex was like a bright moon, emitting a dark green luster. Within each strand of light, Countless green seal characters flashed. The brilliance of the Sorcerer's Codex illuminated the entire soul formation sky. Layers upon layers of mountains and rivers appeared extremely clearly, and within these drawings, the men plowing and the women weaving also appeared alive. What was special was that after layers upon layers of mountains and rivers were born, layers upon layers of pitch-black hell were born. In the pitch-black darkness, the tragic scenes of the 18 layers of hell flashed one after another. It was the hell of tongue-pulling, the hell of scissors, the hell of tree of iron, the hell of mirror of retribution, the fellow Daoist steamer, the hell of bronze pillars, the hell of knife mountain, the hell of ice mountain, the hell of frying pan, the hell of cow pit, the hell of stone pressure, the hell of blood pond, the hell of wrongful death, the hell of dismemberment, the hell of volcano, the hell of stone grinding, or the hell of knife saw. The tragic scenes of the 18 layers of hell were extremely vivid. Greetings, fellow Daoist. Soul Cultivator Xianxia appeared in front of Jade Archive Xianxia and cupped his hands in salute. Jade Archive Xianxia withdrew his gaze from the strange scene of the soul formation sky and looked at Soul Cultivator Xianxia. Soul Cultivator Xianxia was no longer several zhang tall like a god from before. Instead, he had become the same size as Jade Archive Xianxia. His originally somewhat illusory body had completely solidified. What was special was that the rolling green seal characters in his eyes had already disappeared. Except for the occasional green light that overflowed, his black and white eyes were no different from Jade Archive Xianxia's. Of course, Soul Cultivator Xianxia's clothes were still the same, but there was an inexplicable crown on his head. This crown was not clear. It seemed to be square and hexagonal. However, a kind of surging aura that made Jade Archive Xianxia feel terrified came out of the crown. Congratulations, fellow Daoist, for your great progress in cultivation. Jade Archive Xianxia raised his hand to return the salute. Hee, congratulations to you too. Soul Cultivator Xianxia's laughter matched his facial expression very well. He was no different from a real person. Congratulations to Xianxia for your great progress in cultivation. Little white dragons circled around in the air, soul threads dancing around his body. He instantly transformed into a human figure identical to Xianxia and cupped his hands with a smile. His voice was actually the same as Xianxia's. Jade Archive Xianxia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Why is Little White so naughty? Why does he have to transform into I?" Little White stroked his chin and looked at Xianxia thoughtfully. He smiled and said, "There's no other reason. I like it." Jade Archive Xianxia almost fell over. He could only put his hand to his forehead and say, "Whatever. Xianxia, how's the matter of my body molding coming along? I remember you saying that you had some ideas last time." Little White hurriedly asked before Jade Archive Xianxia could say anything. Jade Archive Xianxia smiled and said, "I did have some ideas, but for some reason, I couldn't make it in time for the appointment with Ao Zhantian. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it this time. I'll contact Jianghu of the Heavenly Paradise River in the future." It's fine. Xiao Bai, on the other hand, understood Xianxia's hard work and smiled. "I got some good fortune in your soul formation. Don't be too anxious. Don't you Dao cultivators talk about fate? Perhaps I won't have the chance to condense my body." "And it's good that you have this thought." Xianxia nodded. According to Jianghu, if you want to form a dragon body, you have to use the dragon cleansing pool of the Dragon Island. And the Dragon Island? We have no relationship with the Dragon Island at all. How can they let us use it so casually? So we can only act according to circumstances. I naturally understand the difficulty of forming a body. To be honest, with my current memories, forming a body is extremely difficult even in the 10,000 demon realm. So you don't have to worry. If I can't form a body, I'll stay here for the rest of my life." Little White comforted Jade Archive Xianxia. Jade Archive Xianxia was speechless. Little White Dragon's soul could stay in his mysterious cloud for the rest of his life. He didn't care, but what about him? How could he let him stay here forever? I wonder why fellow Daoist came here today? Soul Cultivator Xianxia covered his mouth and asked with a smile. Jade Archive Xianxia ignored Little White and said to Soul Cultivator Xianxia with a smile, "I came to find fellow Daoist today because I have a happy occasion." "Oh," Soul Cultivator Xianxia raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "I just had an earth-shaking change here, And now there's a happy occasion. It's really a double blessing. Haha. Seeing that soul cultivator Xiaohua could speak so eloquently, Jade Archive Xiaohua was quite happy. He waved his hand and took out the reincarnation drum from his Taoist robe. This is a soul tool. Take a look. Can it be compared with the soul falling lamp in the back earth village of Meng Mountain? Soul cultivator Xiaohua took the reincarnation drum, looked it up and down, and said with a smile, "This soul tool is really exquisite. If fellow Taoist wasn't so familiar with the Buddhist scriptures, I'm afraid you would have mistaken it for a Buddhist tool." After saying that, soul cultivator Xiaohua opened his mouth and several green seal characters flew out. These green seal characters caused a strange sound and then fell in one place, forming an even bigger green seal character. The space around this green seal character was distorted abnormally, and a soul-shaking sound was heard as the green seal character fell on the soul tool. Swoosh! Like a wind blowing on dust, the surface of the soul tool was shaved off layer by layer. The 6 paths of reincarnation quickly shrank, and the Buddhist light and the sound of chanting turned into specks of light and disappeared in the air. In front of Xiaohua and Jade Archive Xiaohua, a 3-foot-long writing brush appeared in the air. This. Jade Archive Xiaohua's eyes fell on the shaft of the brush. This shaft was as thick as a fist and had the same 6 paths engraved on it. However, this 6 paths of reincarnation diagram was very strange and different from the previous one. The lines of the diagram were so thin that they were almost invisible to the naked eye. Furthermore, these diagrams were simple and cold to the extreme. Even Jade Archive Xiaohua felt a chill run down his spine when he looked at them. However, there was something different about this brush shaft. The tip of the brush was a bright green color that was so dazzling that it looked like a budding flower. Wait! Jade Archive Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and waved his hand, causing the brush to land in his hand. "Fellow Taoist soul cultivator, please come with me." However, Xiaohua had just moved the Jade Archive when he stopped and laughed bitterly. "I forgot that fellow Immortal Confucian cultivator is in closed-door cultivation right now. Why is fellow Taoist looking for fellow Taoist Confucian?" Soul cultivator Xiaohua asked curiously. "This is clearly a soul tool." Haha, fellow Taoist soul cultivator. Jade Archive Xiaohua rubbed his nose and smiled. "Have you ever heard fellow Taoist Confucian talk about the story of painting sage Maoyang?" "Of course I have." Soul cultivator Xiaohua laughed. "That guy is always bored when he's not cultivating. He would always tell me about Confucian classics and anecdotes. Of course I have heard about the story of magic brush Maoyang." At this point, soul cultivator Xiaohua suddenly understood. He looked at the brush in Jade Archive Xiaohua's hand and asked curiously, "Could this be the magic brush Maoyang's magic brush?" How is this possible? You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.